Nobody worry, please. Tonight is not going to be one of those vPubs where I just spend the whole night whinging about price. It is a theme in a vPub. We're always kind of looking for value, but actually what I'm going to be doing tonight is not that. Tonight I'm actually going to be celebrating price. I think that it's relevant. I think that it's a good time to do it. And I think that for a lot of you out there, it's going to be something that's going to become more and more of an issue. With that in mind, I'll see you in a second. Hello, Whisky folk. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the vPub. Welcome to another Thursday night. It's just me tonight, no guests or anything. Occasionally, if you're new to the vPub, this is how we kind of do things. We keep it kind of mixed and switching it up from week to week. It's just me on a solo topic tonight, as planned. Last week we had Ralphie, and in the weeks ahead, we're going to have kind of variation creeping into the vPub where we'll have guests on, we'll have community events and things, and we might even have some live broadcasts on location and things like that. But for tonight, I've got a topic, and I think it's a relevant topic to talk about. And I think it's kind of close to a lot of the community's hearts, honestly speaking, and it's going to become potentially more so, as I said. So that is going to be the focus of tonight. What I will say at the outset, though, is if you're picking this up on the replay, I will have hopefully stayed up and put little chapter markers in so you can skip ahead to the bottles that you feel you might be interested in or whatever. But I'm going to try and keep the pace quite tight and quick tonight. So for certain segments, I've got 15 bottles to share with you. That's as many as a normal recycled review. But I've cut it up into 5 chunks, 5 collections, if you like, all trying to get under that target price that we set. And I'll go through that tonight, and I'll try and keep it quite snappy and keep the points salient, but as salient as I can get anyway. Before we get into all of that, I'm going to jump into the lounge. I need to pour something, actually. And what am I going to pour? I've not had this in a while. I want to keep it a wee bit off screen because this is part of the first collection of 5. So we'll get to this one in a minute. And on this space over my shoulder here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to line up the 5 bottles. I'm going to use that as a benchmark. I'm going to tell you how much the 5 bottles cost. I'm going to tell you what I think about them, where they could be better. And then I'm going to try and improve on it without spending too much money. I'm going to put up a lineup of another 5. And then I'll put up another lineup of another 5 alternatives even to that. That's the plan. Anyway, I've poured a wee dram so I can welcome you all in and say Slantia. Welcome, everybody. It's fantastic to see you all. Cheers. Everything's going orange. I hope everything's okay. If you're trying to get my attention, that's how to do it. Just type Aquavite or Aquavite if you're on desktop at least, and I should see it orange. Fantastic. Let's jump in and welcome some of you beautiful whisky folk and dedicated barflies. I always forget Max Kreitner he'll be shouting at the screen right now because he's looking at me, looking at my watch, and he realizes that she's alive and she's listening to me, and I've not put it on theatre mode again. So there we go, Max. I've done it. I've listened to your advice. I do forget, but she's not going to disturb us. Let's grab some of that orange and welcome you in. Let's scroll back up. Gordon Fraser is in. Good to see you, Gordon. I hope you're doing very well, my friend. Gav Strams is here too. Good to see you, Gav. Savar Björgfinson. Savar, I know I always butcher your name, but he's in Great Tan. No, well, I'm a bit peely-wally. You would have seen in the recycled review that went out that the contrast between, having some colour about my pale blue skin while I was over in Spain, because that was recorded at the start of August, and then the much more recently recorded footage from here, that contrast was quite stark. And I left it the way it was. I didn't crank up the saturation or play with the colour or anything. I just left it as it was. It's just no fake colour here. But thanks, Savara. It's nice to see you. And Graham Brown is here. Good to see you, Graham. He's celebrating being a Barfly member for 10 months. And he's got a wee Glencadam emoji there. What Graham's celebrating there is basically, you'll notice that the vPub and now the recycled reviews, There's enough barflies sponsoring the content now that I'm not going to monetize any content that I put out on YouTube. It pays buttons, honestly speaking. Whisky is very niche. So even if I was a super successful channel, I would never earn very much from ad revenue, I don't think. And I was looking at what I was earning from ad revenue, and I thought, this is nonsense. Let's just encourage the barflies in. Let's encourage them to join and support in that way. Let's not have any ads, and I can control things a wee bit better, hopefully. No ads at all, because the barflies pay for the YouTube side of things to keep it ad-free. You pay $1.99 a month, and you get access to the emojis that Graham's been using there, whiskey-themed emojis. And yeah, $1.99, whether it's pounds, euros, dollars, whatever it is. That's the idea of the barflies. It keeps all the content ad-free. I am financed through Patreon. A lot of people ask that, what's the difference between joining as a member of the YouTube channel and Patreon? Patreon is a separate community. That's where everything is powered. That's the engine for everything. All the patrons provide me with a living. That's how I can do what I do, whether it's here inside Aquavitae. That's the main core of it. That's what the patrons pay for. But it's also seeded other projects such as dramface.com, and it's also seeded the OSWAs, the Online Scotch Whisky Awards, with Ralphie. Ralphie and I pay for that 50-50. And that's what you're achieving. Dramface, we're growing very, very fast, and that's going to get to a point where it will also be funded by itself, by the community over at Dramface. But that's what you're able to achieve, and none of it is asking for handouts and favors and contracts from anyone, from sponsorships, from partnerships, or anything. That's what all these things are about. It's a new way of thinking about content and how you consume content and how you keep it independent. Sorry if that went for a wee bit ranty. Max is here. Good to see you, Max. I hope you caught me fixing my watch, Max. Whiskey 101 is in. Nick, good to see you. Lucas is here. John Campbell is saying, evening all, enjoying the Hazelburn 15-year-old Open Day 2022. Sounds like a peach, John. I don't imagine that you're Loch Lee, John Campbell. I think you're probably just a namesake, but it's nice to welcome you here, and I hope you're enjoying that dram. Stefan Novak is here. Jeff Whiskey saying, evening, Aquavitae. Hope you've not got any cars going past you tonight. That would be a disaster in the vPub. I've got a real problem if I've got cars passing here. Neil Laverty's here. Evening, Roy and Whisky folk. Erwin Laranaga is here as well. Good to see you, Erwin. I hope you're well. Good to see you, Neil, too. Reb Mordecai is in. Always fantastic to welcome you, Reb. I hope you're well. Ebhead Rolf, my friend from Norway. Good to see you, buddy. Good to be back in the vPub, Roy. Slanches to you, my friend. Graham Fraser is saying, hey, Roy, long time no see. It's probably been 3 nights, is it? I mean, no, actually only 2 nights, Graham, right? I saw you at the Glasgow Whisky Club this week. Keith McKenzie is a barfly. It looks like a new name, Keith. I hope I've welcomed you in before. If I haven't, welcome tonight, buddy. Good evening all. Oh, big jump in the chat there. Oops, sorry. Scroll back up. There's Peter Box celebrating being a member for 22 months. He's saying hello, everyone. Hello to Peter Box. Welcome. Pedro Benethes is in saying good evening. Super nice theme. Well, I hope so, Pedro. I'm going to spend a wee bit of time explaining it in a wee minute. Ian Bruce is saying good evening, Roy. Good evening, Ian. Chris Pollack is saying evening, Roy. Thanks again for the Recycled Review, 15th edition. The Recycled Review went out yesterday. I hope most of you have been able to catch that. And I tried to do a really silly thing. I had an accumulation of bottles that I've been picking up as I've been going over to. We've got a wee family. We call it a button benner, just a wee family kind of holiday home over there in Spain. We've had it for years and years. And over the years, I leave whiskey behind so that other folk going and using the house can have a wee sip of whiskey or whatever. And I kind of just have been accumulating whiskey in Spain. Some of the whiskey's been there a long time, but most of it gets enjoyed, and because we go there because we're on holiday. So hopefully, if I don't drink it, friends and things going out to use the house, family going out to use the house, whatever it may be, they get to drink a wee bit of whiskey. But they were all small levels in the bottles, and I thought these just need cleared out. And I had the idea of doing a kind of Spanish recycled review. So I did just a wee portion of the video from Spain, but I had no camera. I didn't even have a phone because I dropped my phone in the sea like a maniac. So I had to do the best I could. And what you see is warts and all. So you see, I found this quiet spot and I said, this is a good wee spot. There's not going to be many people coming here. And just as I pressed record, suddenly the traffic, there were joggers, there were people hanging out of windows, there were passers-by. And the amount of stuff that I edited out of that was incredible. But hopefully you still get a chance to hear my opinions about the whiskey and the point I was making about global travel retail. And then the rest of the Recycled Review is just a regular, quieter, slightly quieter event next to the purple bin. It's the single most popular video ever on the channel. It's gone great guns. I think it was over 4,000 views or something when I checked this evening. I was catching up with some comments earlier as well. Thanks all for your support. And Ian, was it Chris? It was Chris Pollack, I think. Sorry, Chris. Thank you for noticing it and enjoying it. Dan Fordham is in saying, good evening. Good to see you, Dan. Olaf is saying, hello, everybody. Excited to be here. Probably the first vPub I've been able to attend live in over 6 months. Olaf, it's wonderful to have you in live, my friend. I hope you're comfortable. And I hope it's not the last time. Cal Whisky is here. Good to see you, Cal. Sitting with a Glenuri tonight. A Glenuri. Wow. Fantastic, Cal. A nice one. I hope you're enjoying it. Colours Blue Things is saying, evening, Roy. And a belated welcome back. Hope you enjoyed your break. Nice to see you in, my friend. I did enjoy it very, very much. Listen, I can see there's lots of orange and it's jumped again. I try doing my best to interact with you tonight since there's no guest on. That recycled and review was a nice idea, says Falsgraph. It was a nice idea. Poorly executed, but I think, I got away with it. It's fine. And Sabrina Benoit is saying, I tried to chase this famous bin in Scotland. Sabrina, it's here. It's interesting, though, because Peter Lee commented that he'd once come into the driveway to hug the bin. It was because he was with me. He'd driven me home. But it was on security camera. And my wife the next morning brought this footage to me and said, what's this? Who's the guy in the back driveway hugging the bin? Yes, it's kind of funny that there's a wheelie bin that people in the world, only in the whiskey world, recognise. Doc is here, Macallan Fine and Rare. That background noise in Spain, I know, Doc. That's the importance of putting a mic as close to the source as possible. So, usually if I'm doing a recycled review even outside, I'll lav mic really close. But even that close, I was still able to pick up the noise of my neighbour starting up his power tools, right? It's just, there's nothing you can do. You can't go to your neighbour and say, excuse me, I'm shooting. You need to be completely silent for an afternoon or whatever. It's just not going to happen. So you just need to roll with it. You need to roll with the traffic. It's not my street in Spain. It wasn't my recycled bin. So I just had to do the best I could. Jimmy Legg is in. That's where the phone is belong when you're on vacation, Roy, in the sea. I only took the phone into the sea to take footage of the kids were loving the waves and the things. And I didn't actually drop it in the sea. That's not true. But I did get it a wee bit wet, and it was in my pocket. And I guess the shorts I was wearing were obviously wet. But, it's supposed to have some protection. The problem you have is if you plug it in and try and charge it wet. I think that's what fried it. Jim Whiskey Novice is here. Good to see you. You have a heart like a lion recording that review, Roy. I stress when the birds are making some noise outside when I'm recording. You went with it and it was class. Listen, we're kindred spirits there. There's just so much noise. I've got family in the house as well. They're running about doing things, and hopefully you guys aren't distracted by it too much. We do what we can. We don't all, none of us, I don't know anyone that works from a studio, right? Glenn Dunkel is saying good morning to all. Good morning to you, Glenn, obviously coming into us from Australia. Enjoy your whiskey weekend, everyone. Fantastic for you to drop by, my friend. I hope you're well. And Mike is saying the background noise, rain, and occasional bin huggers are all part of the charm of the recycled reviews. That's right. I've done it in the rain. I've done it in the snow. I've done it when the sun's split in the sky. The idea is to bring a bit of that kind of outdoor environment into the theme of things, but hopefully not that amount of distraction. And Mike Marotzi is saying, how long does it actually take to shoot and edit a recycled review? Longer than you might imagine. I'm getting a wee bit better at it. I think the vPub has helped me a lot because I think the way I speak about whiskey is different. If you were to go back and see an early vPub, I would be a wee bit more ums and ums, and I think I've learned how to speak a wee bit. The cadence, the tone, the pitch, everything has changed a wee bit. And I think that helps me when I'm recording the recycled reviews. The real time sink in a recycled review is when you've recorded the footage, you've got an audio track, you've got all the B-roll and the little bits and pieces to do, and then you have to come in and knit it all together and do editing. That's what it takes. I've usually got dry, sore, stinging eyes after the editing day. But as you know, I do this most of the time, so I don't need to edit that often. So it's not something I should complain about. All the creators out there on YouTube, whether they're bringing you whiskey content or otherwise, all go through that pain. I think we all need to kind of do some, not everyone edits, okay? Everybody has a different style and a theme, but the effort that goes into it, especially for pre-recorded, polished content, Content like first fill whiskey down in New Zealand, that must take him hours and hours. Planning, shooting, everything. The Whiskey Diary Ben, superb, so pretty to look at. You know, I'm talking about, well, he's handsome too, but I'm talking about the B-roll and the shots that he takes and everything. These are professional guys doing amazing things, bringing their skills into their whiskey passion, but it takes a lot of time. Jimmy likes bought me a dram. Are you having 15 drams tonight? Please say it isn't so. Absolutely not, Jimmy. I'll do it in 3 chunks of 5 and I'll zip through them as quick as I can. I've got 5 glasses in front of me tonight. I've got 6 glasses, but one's full of water. And that's it. I'll have 5 drams. I've already filled one from the first lineup of 5. Thank you very much, Jimmy, for your virtual dram. Cheers. 15 drams a night. Well, that would be something for you all to see, wouldn't it? Anyway, let's go on with the topic tonight. But first, I want to just give a wee shout out to someone. We need to send some thoughts, some love and some strength to our friend, Jason Bradford. I think Jason's visually impaired, but he's still super interactive. He's in the comments. He's in the Barflies page on Facebook, and he's certainly one of our community, but he lost a dear friend after a bit of a troubled fight this week, and he's struggling a wee bit, and he needs our thoughts and he needs our strength. So I'm going to raise this wee glass for Andy, who was lost far too young, Jason, far too young. And to say that we're all thinking about you, and we hope you're well, my friend. Cheers. To Andy. Sometimes we need to pause and take a wee minute just to consider the privilege that we have to enjoy this thing, to be able to taste it. That's what it's all about. Also want to give a wee shout out to one of the things that I've really loved about the vPub over the years, even back at the start when it was much smaller than it is now, is that this connection, this real life connection, people are working out, oh, we live close to each other, we should meet up, we should do a flight, we should do a tasting, we should go somewhere, go to an event, hey, we should start a whiskey club. The amount of whiskey clubs that have been seeded in this chat is incredible to hear about. It's wonderful. There's another whiskey club that's not seeded in this chat, but it is. It does involve some barflies. And it's incredible that this whiskey club didn't exist. I'm going to drop a link in, not for you to join, only join if you are near Liverpool. Brian, Whiskey Trouble, Brian, got in touch with me to say, hey, finally, there's going to be a Liverpool whiskey club. And it's looking like it's going to be rooted in a place called the Hopscotch Whiskey Bar, I think it's called. Hopscotch Bar in Liverpool, I think. I think that's where it's going to be hosted. And it's going to be held there. And there's 100 places available. So it is limited. If you manage to get in, please only join if you're able to contribute, if you're able to attend, if you're able to be part of that community, if you want to meet like-minded people. And the northwest of England, around Liverpool, so Wirral and that kind of district around there. Have a wee look at the link I've dropped in. I'll drop it in below as well, and hopefully I'll remember to drop it in for the folk watching on the replay too. But I think it's almost full. But Brian reached out to ask if I would talk about the Liverpool Whiskey Club, and of course I'm happy to. I think it's amazing that everybody's able to get together out there in the big, real world. Okay. Price is a theme in the vPub, and it has been for a couple of years, and it's kind of become more and more of a theme. And that's probably down to who hosts the vPub, right? I have a limited budget that I can spend, but I also take it upon myself to spend money on whiskey that I maybe otherwise would not, because I'm not buying whiskey that I am passionate about and love. I'm buying whiskey that I feel like you should know about. Whiskey that's available to you, whiskey that you probably need some guidance and opinion on. And when I find discoveries that are good and worth talking about, I talk about it in the vPub. And when I find things that are cynical or bad or things that have disappointed me, I think it's still a positive thing to talk about those things. You know, we don't want to encourage whiskey to become worse and worse. We want to encourage whiskey to be better and better. And sometimes that means speaking negatively about things, including price. But tonight, I'm going to try hard not to do that. Tonight, I'm going to celebrate price. You might remember at the start of the year in 2022, kicking off this year, Ingvar Rond came on to look ahead. For the year ahead, and we sat down and we talked about all of these different topics, and one of them was definitely price. And Ingvar, through his research, had pointed out that 18-year-old whiskey, 15-year-old whiskey, maybe teenage whiskey and beyond, yes, you can see the prices going out of reach. You can see the price increases happening. But he was also quick to point out that sub 12 years old, the 10-year-old, the 12-year-old, the staples, the non-age statement, the younger, the core range stuff was not. It was static. And if I am honest, a lot of the prices have been static for as long as the vPub has been in existence. We should talk about this. We should talk about this when we whinge about pricing. You might remember last week when Ralphie was on, and the two of us talked at length about the prices involved in the nominations with the Online Scotch Whisky Awards, because the whole community were as nervous about that as we were. That's why we published the nominations with guide prices, so that people could see the context, the price that it was nominated at. And if they were going to be overcharged for it, they could step away and not bother. They don't want to encourage gouging or price hikes. A year later, we're ready to do the Oswas this year again in early November. So we do a wee bit of kind of checking. And I shared that with you on those slides last week, and you'll notice that they were all green. They all had thumbs up ticks to say, this is more or less the same price, within a pound or two. Sometimes a pound or two cheaper, but generally within the exact same ballpark as it was a year ago. There's not been any price hikes until you get to the more premium end of things, of course. And all that was encouraging for me to read and see, because I had this topic coming up, this angle, this perception, this thing to talk about in whiskey where the prices are actually pretty stable. So that was interesting, and I hope you took something out of that, because this is a big deal for everyone going forward. I don't know where you live, and I don't know what you're going to face in the months ahead. If you're in the southern hemisphere, sorry, good for you, because you're coming into warmer months. But we're coming into cooler months now, and our energy usage is going to ramp up, and it's going to become super expensive. And that means that we're going to have to make hard choices, unless we're very, very comfortable and well off, which I get the impression that's not the community I speak to. We're going to have to make a decision between buying whiskey and paying for other things that are far more essential than whiskey. I also think, and let's not talk about the concept too much, that whiskey is a privilege, it's a luxury item, it's it's something that I would argue that is while it's not essential, it's something that is very good in terms of value, because it brings a lot of people together. It gives us a passionate focus. It gives us that moment of contemplation. It gives us an outlet, a healthy outlet. We have to be respectful, of course, but it gives us that outlet. So I would say that while it's not essential, it is a lifeline. And a lot of people, especially over the last couple of years, have lent on that lifeline heavily. But I'll also suggest to you that we've been hoarding whiskey for a long time now. I don't know about you, but if I decided that I'm just not going to buy any whiskey, I'm not only going to be comfortable with whiskey for years ahead, I'm probably going to still be able to bring up relevant topics to talk about. I don't think anybody needs to go out and buy whiskey, but I think it's something that we enjoy. And that's going to be the crucial theme of it tonight. This is not buying cheap whiskey. This is carefully considering what whiskey brings value. We're going to focus on the more attainable, more lower cost end of the spectrum, but we're going to try really hard not to focus on cheap, because cheap and value are different things. That's the idea behind tonight. I don't want to get into politics, but you maybe are going to be better off than we are in the UK right now. Things are messy in the UK right now. We're facing strikes from everywhere you want it, because people are struggling and they're nervous about the days ahead, and they realize that they're being treated badly. So we're seeing things that we haven't seen since the 70s happening in the UK. I don't know if it's the same where you are, But people are nervous about money. People are super nervous about money. The people that can afford the premium whiskies, the expensive whiskies, the collectible whiskies, the exclusive whiskies, they're still going to probably be able to afford them. That's not what I'm going to talk about tonight. I'm talking about the stuff that we can still get together in the vPub, in the Liverpool Whisky Club, wherever we may be, and enjoy whiskies. So they have to be affordable, but they have to be interesting. So the first 5 whiskies I'm going to share with you in a second are going to be a benchmark. They're going to be a baseline. These are kind of obvious, easy reach for whiskies. And I'll leave them here and we'll try and improve on them in engagement and interest as the night goes on. Pedro Menezes is saying, I think we don't buy whiskies anymore. We buy the discovery and the experience. It's not a drink. If you need whiskey as a drink, you're just buying whiskey. And as long it just needs to meet the bare minimum. It just needs to be sufferable. We're not playing there at all. We're not buying just whiskey. We're buying flavor. We're buying texture. We're buying contemplation, shared experiences, moments. It's so much more than just a drink. We know this. I'm preaching to the converted. But sometimes when people come into whiskey, I think it's quite surprising. Let me share a wee anecdote with you before I hit these 5 whiskies. We're looking to get some work done outside of the house, some landscaping work and things over the course of winter, and we had to get some folk in to give us prices and things. And one guy he gets talking to me and he asked me what I did, and I told him, and he was shocked. But anyway, he got excited because he was a wee bit interested in whiskey, and I brought him down to this wee room here, and I said, oh, and he looked at not just what's behind me here, but he looked at what's on the shelves over there. And he was almost speechless. He was literally looking at all of this going, what is this? This is crazy. What's going on? So I spent a minute speaking to him about it, and he understood it. He knew whiskey enough to understand what my angle on it was. So he started to tell me about what whiskey he enjoyed. And I started to put bottles in his hands and tell him. I was excited to share these whiskies with him that I thought he would enjoy. And he was clearly excited. He was lit up and he said, how much does this cost? And I said, this one's £60. And he nearly collapsed. 60, is this a collectible whiskey or something? He asked. And I had to check myself. I realized that £60 to me is, £60 can bring me tremendous value. £60 does not seem abusively expensive anymore in whiskey. £60 is so many bottles of whiskey. For him, that was incredibly expensive. And I realized he's probably buying whiskies at £20 to £25 that he can easily pick up when he's out picking up the family shopping, or when he's just kind of buying something as he flies through an airport or something, he's going to just grab an inexpensive offer at duty free or something. So we all need to remember that a little bit as well, that the vast majority of the market, £50 to £60, it sucks the breath out of them. It's incredible for them to hear that. One of the things that seeded this topic tonight was that moment. Cheers, everyone. A couple of comments. I'll hit you with the first 5 and then we can move on. Whiskey Straight Alice saying, I've been working on a similar review mentioning value. If you don't mind, I'll include your quote, cheap doesn't mean value. That's right. A cheap whiskey doesn't necessarily guarantee value. An expensive whiskey can still deliver value, but it needs investment, it needs understanding, it needs folk that understand what they've got in front of them. And it's not always about flavour. Sometimes it's about the ceremony of opening a specific bottle that has an emotional connection, or maybe it's a historical thing that you know that you're privileged to taste, and all of that weaves into the experience. You're absolutely spot on, Al. Durham Pass Whisky saying, was going to stock up on Aaron 10, Deanston 12 a couple of months ago. Just before I ordered, the prices jumped $15 on all of them. This is where the regional thing comes in. They're just marking up existing stock. Tim, you're spot on. That's happening everywhere. The real frustration about that, and I don't want to say it's my frustration, certainly it's your frustration if you're trying to buy, but the frustration should lie with the producer there, because it's the supply chain that benefit out of that cynicism and that price hiking. It's a shame. Ian Bruce is saying, I agree, whiskey is a tool to engage and share with new or old friends. Aye. And a whiskey friend is just a potential very good. What is it they say? They say that a stranger is just a friend that you've not yet met. I find that whiskey is a wonderful way to bring strangers into your friendship circles, and they're good folk. Ridiculously good folk. Whiskey's good at finding good folk. Anyway, enough of my prattling on. Let's just go. And there's a light theme to these, but I've tried to go with 5 whiskies that there's a very good chance that if you're in the UK at least, you might be able to pick these up in a supermarket. So the retail price is there, but there's an offer price as well, as is the way with supermarkets. They have an inflated price that they call the retail price, but then the price that they've negotiated the deal on is the discount price. They call it an offer price at a discount, but that's the price. And if you buy it off offer, you're just supermarkets have taught us how to behave in a specific way in the UK at least, and I'm sure that we're not unique there. Some of the whiskies I'll talk about you'll be familiar with and you'll recognise, but you'll maybe have to go to a specialist place, but you will recognise them as being lower cost examples. Does that mean lower quality? Well, let's go through them one at a time. Luna Aaron is saying just had a wonderful night with neighbours, introducing them to Glenmurray, Cask Strength and Springbank. Good for you, Luna, doing your evangelism out there in Germany. Terrific stuff. Let's start off with malt, but not single malt. A blended malt we'll start with. This used to be called Naked Grouse. They don't call it Naked Grouse anymore, but there is, on my bottle at least, a nice embossed grouse on the label. I'll hold this up so that you can see the wee grouse, I hope, but it doesn't really matter. Most of the information on this is around the neck. It says, it's not going to, because if it's looking for my face, it won't focus right. It's trying. And the information is on the back. This is an Edrington product. So you have to guess that blended malt, there's a good chance that we're going to have Glenrothes in here. We're going to have maybe a wee bit of Highland Park. Is the chances of having Macallan in here? I wouldn't have thought so, but it could be. But it could also be reliant on traded stock as well. So there could be other malts in here as well. We don't know what's in here, but we know that there's no grain whiskey in here. It's all blended malt. In the UK, the retail of this is about £25 to £28, but you can regularly pick this up for £20. This is a recommend bottle. Why? Because you can put this in front of everybody and it's easy for them to sip. It's no problem at all. It's smooth, it's rounded, it's accessible, it's rich, and it does have a little bit of spice in there. It is leaning towards the sherry end of the flavour spectrum, but I would go as far to say that probably in order to give us more of that idea of the sherry end, it's a bit coloured too. They certainly don't write natural colour on the label. Most of Edrington's products, their malts are natural colour. If it's from Edrington, Highland Park, Macallan, Glenrothes, as far as I'm aware, are not using any colour. It's natural. But this Naked Grouse, this price point, this area of the market, I think that they would clearly colour it. Hey-ho, this is still a reasonable wee pour. It's not something that you would warn people away from, especially at £20 or £22 a bottle. Ridiculously good value for malt whiskey. So let's pop that up there. What I should have done tonight, you see that clearly, right? What I should have done tonight, and it would have been smart for me to do, is kind of have a little kind of overlay with the price mounting up as I do this. But I've kind of got totals here and I'll share with you. Let's switch it up. Let's go somewhere else. We're still not in single malt whiskey yet. We're in a blended whiskey, but I'm going to use tonight to keep it interesting. We're not just talking about cheap. So we're not just going to go out and buy a bottle of Jameson and say, here's Jameson, here's triple distilled Irish whiskey or whatever. Because I think what we need to do around our whiskey moments is engage people with stories, backstories, and flavour. And that's hard to do if you focus on Johnnie Walker Red and Jameson and cheap blends. These are these whiskies. There's nothing wrong with these whiskies, but it's not the type of whiskey that's going to suck somebody in who wants to talk about an experience more than just a drink. I think this is a decent whiskey. This is a Japanese whiskey. Now, I believe this to be fully Japanese. I can't guarantee it. I know that it's still not legislated. It's still very much a guidance thing. But as I understand it, that Suntory Toki is a Japanese blended whiskey. And it uses the word Japanese on the label, blended Japanese whiskey. It's at 43%, so we've got a few more points of ABV of interest over the, our blended malt over there in the naked. What we have here, though, is an interesting, bright, fresh, well-balanced, sweet, easy sipper. And it's different from this, where this is kind of a warming experience, 1 or 2 drams and you're done. This is so light and fresh and grippy that I think it's moreish. It does make you want to go back and try a wee bit more. And as a contrast against this, it's excellent. It's about 28 to 30 pounds in the UK, but this is available everywhere. This is a high volume product, and it's often on offer for £25 and less in the UK. Maybe you're able to pick it up on offer where you are. Again, this is not something that you would warn people away from. You would actively encourage them to try this as they got into whiskey. And you know they're not going to be spending a lot of money to do it. We're not encouraging them to buy cheap. We're encouraging them to buy interesting. We're just laying down the benchmark here. All we're doing is just laying down a baseline. I'll do it as quick as I can. So before we get into the malts, let's go for one more blend. Let's go for, if I said to you, recommend me a blended malt right now, recommend me one blended malt that I should spend my money on, I guarantee you within 5 or 6 seconds, it's going to be typed into this chat. It'll be on the tip of the tongue of most of us. We know it very well as a whiskey community. The wider public out there recognise it, but they don't actually appreciate what it is. How long is it going to be before somebody recommends this? This has got to be on so many shelves everywhere. It disappeared for years, then it made a comeback. It was quite successful and popular, and now it's kind of stuck. I do have a problem with it. I'll get to that in a second, because Alan Widdowson, I think that's Helen and Andy's son. Quick thanks, Roy, for having this community of whiskey lovers that have given my folks, Hellswood, an extended family to share their love of whiskey. Alan, they've brought up a good son in you, I think, my friend. Thank you very much for those kind words, and thank you very much for the dram as well, Alan. Cheers to you. This is part of the baseline because I think everybody's expecting me to talk about this whiskey tonight. This is blended malt whiskey, and it does have some kind of peaty, more kind of savoury elements in it, typically. I have talked positively about Johnnie Walker Green Label in the past, but I am not getting on well with this bottle. This is a wee bit oaky and sickly and overly sweet, and I'm not sure that it's me that's changed, because I opened this right on the back of a previous bottle that I did enjoy very much, that had much more spice and grip in it. This is a bit more vanilla, and I don't know why. I can't put my finger on it. It's 43% ABV. I've made the mistake in the past of suggesting it's 40. That is 43%. The big thing here that we need to remember is its age statement. It's a 15-year-old all malt whiskey, but the price has gone up now as well. You might be able to pick it up on offer. I have seen it at 28, 30, 32 pounds, but the retail price of this is 40 and north of 40. We have to bear in mind it is a 15-year-old product. I think that this would still be a fuller, weightier experience than the first ones that I've put up there, especially with a little bit of smoke coming into it from the Talisker and Kalila that it's supposed to have. But I think that for me to recommend it to an enthusiast is a harder thing for me to do now. But I have to talk about it because I think you guys would expect me to be talking about Johnnie Walker Green Label. I paid 32, I think, for this one, which isn't bad. If I was to buy it today, I would have to pay 40, 42. Looking at the current prices, a bit expensive, but 15-year-old malt whiskey, we have to remember. So that's it in the centre of our first 5. Trying to get through this a wee bit quicker tonight, a bit more like a recycled review. And here we have another inexpensive malt whiskey that we can pick up almost everywhere. I've even seen this in, I saw this in Spain. Was it Spain I saw it? Or perhaps on the way to Spain? Not sure. But this is Aber Falls Welsh single malt whiskey. Interestingly, here they have gone a price point route on this one. So this is presented at 40% ABV. The only new distillery in the British Isles, at least, that I'm aware of, that have gone that 40% route. Interesting. But I paid £22 for this. Am I going to complain? A wee bit. Yes, a wee bit. if they put it out at 46% and I had to pay 45 for it, that's quite a considerable extra chunk of money. But you know, it is what it is. If you went and paid retail for this just now, if you went to one of the online retailers, I think I wrote it down what people are paying for this just now. Let's see, no, £25, I think 25, maybe 28. So this is a price point whiskey, but it's not ready yet. This is still, for me, I can't put my finger on what it is. I tried it this week when I was researching for this vPub again, and it's kind of a metallic note, almost depending on what you sip it in contrast with, it leans a wee bit to a kind of sulphury note side. Not sulphur like from a sherry cask sulphur, but some kind of sulphury note from, I can't put my finger on what it is that's making this not sit with me. I think this wee whiskey needs time. And I know that Aber Falls were founded in 2017, 2018. They were making gin first and they moved on to whiskey. So this is no older than 4 years old. I think it's 3-year-old whiskey. It's still interesting to talk about because it's Welsh whiskey. We can't buy Penderyn easily anymore, not even the Madeira cask. It's been a long time since I've seen it. It's still out there, but it's not a cheap whiskey anymore, and an expensive whiskey, let's say. So it's nice to have Welsh whiskey available once more. I would rather this was just spent a wee bit longer and was released at a more interesting ABV. I'm not sure why I'm not getting on with this yet. Maybe you are. I would recommend it from the point of it's interesting and inexpensive, but I think we can do better, and that's what we're going to try and do tonight. Got one more to share with you, and this is the nicest one. This is the one I poured in my glass. This is the one I've been sipping along with you guys tonight. Does suffer from batch inconsistency, let's say, some batch variation in there with this little malt. All of this distillery's malts do. I don't think they mind too much about batch variation. I just wish that they would put a batch marker on the bottle that we could decipher and understand. However, this one is nice because the last one I had was just spirity and thin. This brings a lot of that lovely malty character back again, and there's a bit of weight to this once more. I'm actually quite enjoying this wee bottle. I've not often talked about distillery up there in Speyside, at least on the vPub, and that's Glenfarclas. This is an age stated. It's the only age statement apart from the Johnnie Walker there in the first 5. This is age stated, clean, enjoyable, single malt whiskey for a very inexpensive price on offer. Depending on where you pick it up, you'll get it down to maybe 29 or 30 pounds, but it's usually about 35 for the Glenfarclas 10. This is one to recommend. Most of the time. It's a nice, easy malt whiskey that most people can get on with. It is 40%. I think it still remains, out the core range, the only two non-low ABV whiskies from Glenfarclas is their 15 is at 46, and their 105, of course, at 60%. So there we have our lineup. I hope you can see them quite clearly over my shoulder. We have 5 baseline bottles. So that's the 5 whiskies that I have put out there to say, look, you can pick up whiskies that you're not just drinking, that can make you think a little bit, but are quite inexpensive. I think I can build on this. I think I can improve on this. But I will doff my cap in the direction of cost. All of the whiskies that you see here, these 5 bottles cost, in total, £150. £150 for a mini collection of whiskey. So before we get all kind of, no, I don't like that anymore, we have to think about the guy that came into my room here and he's just excited about trying different whiskies. I tell him that one bottle's 60. It's a much more appetizing thing, I think, to tell him he could have a collection, 5 bottles that he can get his friends round and do a flight and a tasting that he can sit at home and sip in contrast for £150. Now, in order for me to improve on this, I might have to spend a wee bit more, but I've set a limit for this vPub tonight of £175. So that's the next 2 sets of 5 that I'm going to put in front of these tonight. It's got to hit that 175. Jimmy Legg is saying, you're 1 for 5. Let's see how you do on the next 5. I'm giving you a baseline, Jimmy. And listen, if you're going to judge me tonight, I encourage it. The more discourse, the more chat that you guys are having, but remember where you're coming from. Share what it is that you are enjoying. I'm going to share what some of the patrons have been enjoying, but remember your perspective. you're coming at it from where I am and beyond, not from the builder that came round to talk to me. We need to remember that whiskey is different for everyone. What I'm trying to do tonight is bring interesting whiskey that's still reachable. I'll be interested to see what your pick out of the 5 is. It the Johnnie Walker, Jimmy? The Hogshead is saying, have you tried the pot dew? Isn't it? It's just pot dew. Blends similar in price to the green label, but at 12 years. I haven't owned a bottle. I've tried it. It's Alex, isn't it? The Hogsheads. I've tried it, but I haven't bought a bottle yet. I have to make a confession. When I was researching this vPub, when I was making all the lists and checking all the prices, I fell down a ridiculously deep rabbit hole. It was incredible. And one of the points I wanted to make is, no, I'm going to make a vPub. I'm going to make content out of the whiskies that I already have. I'm not going to spend money. I'm going to just enjoy what I have. But I was so down a deep rabbit hole researching that I started to buy products for this theme, because I don't think this will be a one-off. I'm not suggesting I'll do it next week or even maybe later this year, possibly though. But I will revisit this again. And I have found some really quite interesting whiskies, much like your suggestion, Alex, that I want to try. I want to try first before I start to talk about it to you. But there's interesting whiskies becoming available all the time. I would love that interest to express itself on the palate. And I would love that interesting side to be something that I can share with you that you'll find interesting too. Some of them would have been delivered for tonight, but the package got damaged. It's currently at the depot. It's going to get sent back again. I'm not going to see those bottles. It doesn't matter, because I'll be able to use them in the future. And there's going to be more that I'll have collected, other bottles that I found that I feel are interesting. Tommy Alvarez saying Glenfarclas is about the only distillery that is affordable in older ages. Well, that depends on where you are, Tom. We've noticed a huge hike in prices. Is it as much as the other hikes that we've seen? No, but it's following the same trend. The 15 is still attainable, about £60, I think. The 21 is now crept well north of 3 figures. In the UK, it used to be regularly under £100, and the 25 is way higher than that again. So where it used to be easy to pick up, and in past recycled reviews, you've heard me evangelising about that very point, Tom. It slipped out of reach a wee bit. Rick Johnson is saying a belated thanks for recommending Compass Box Orchard House and recycled reviews number 15. Exceptional. Rick, thank you for your acknowledgement there. Thank you for finding something that we've all actually enjoyed quite considerably. And thank you for being a barfly as well. You might find that I talk about Compass Box a wee bit later. It might even be the Orchard House. No spoilers. Erwin Laranaga is saying, fair point. Remember, we are in our whiskey journey. 4 of those 5 have been on my shelf often. However, I have forgotten about them. I think that's okay, Erwin, because what I'm trying to point out here is this is the cost. This is the baseline. This is whiskey that we would probably buy and drink and enjoy at a push. Maybe we are someplace, maybe we're traveling, maybe it's just what it's available. These are widely available, good value whiskies that you can still appreciate. But it's an entry point, it's a baseline. David Lorenko is saying Connemara, €32, and a people pleaser. I remember the first bottle of Connemara I had. I've got a bottle down here as well. I thought about bringing it out tonight because I struggled to find an Irish whiskey that I could evangelise about. And the Connemara is just slipping off a wee bit. I thought about it. I had a wee sip on Sunday evening. And I think it's much, much better than it was the first time I tried Connemara. And certainly a lot of people are talking about it now. And so that's when it's not just one person's opinion. When everybody starts to talk about it, you appreciate that it's getting better. It's David, isn't it? Not David. But it's a good one to mention. Let's go to Patreon. Stefan Novak had a fantastic little lineup here. I'm just going to read his comment out in total because it's interesting. And Stefan is quite a significant way down his journey. Even the way he talks about whiskey, you might even pick up on that. But his comment goes along the lines of, here's what I would buy if I go for interesting. One would be an Adelphi blend at €20. A good palate warmer and one of the very few affordable blends where the whole is actually better than the sum of its parts. Love it. Good recommendation, inexpensive, €20. We won't get that here. The Dancing Man blend is not expensive, but I think it's about £25 here. If you're getting that for €20, well done to you over in Germany, Stefan. 2, Thompson Brothers, SRV5, €40, vibrant spirit character, nice tension, and an interesting hint of floweriness from the European oak. He's talking about the vat, the Solera vat that they're marrying the SRV5 in. Very nice sipper, he's saying. 3, Inchmurrin 12, €36, probably the most interesting distillate from Loch Lomond. Fruity and a bit funky. 4, Glencadam Revival, great shout, €35. Can you distill clotted cream, he's asking? What a mouthfeel. And 5, Lechick Sinclair Series Rioja finish, a blind challenge taste sensation from a few weeks ago, just before the summer break on the vPub. Poor man's Long Row Ready suggesting, even I think that was maybe being a wee bit cruel with it, because I think that the Lechick Sinclair has potentially got more to offer to certain people than a Long Row Red. I think there's the Sinclair Rioja finish. I think they found a good way that works well with Lechick as a spirit at the right age, at the right power, where that Rioja cask is not, it's not taking all the attention. I think it's incredible what they've done there. That was one of the bottles that was en route to me that didn't make it. But it will be talked about in the future, Stefan. And a wine finish, Stefan says, that actually works. I agree. €169 altogether, not bad. Terrific stuff. And Menno in Belgium says, pound to euro, he's thinking somewhere in the order of 204. The exchange rate's a bit different. I don't know if you've overshot there a wee bit. Let's see. Campbeltown Loch, good shout. €40, the only obtainable and affordable Springbank here at the moment. Although it's maybe not Springbank. And he concedes with some Glen Scotia in the mix. We don't really know what's in there, honestly. He's also shouting for Inchmurrin 12 of his second pick, €40 grassy candy galore, fantastic. Then he's shot right outside the park. He's put in Glen Scotia Victoriana. He's still able to pick it up at €65. We cannot. Fruity and dirty. He's also shouting for his Lechick Rioja cask, the Sinclair series, €30, the delicious peat bomb in its own right. And when it works, wine cask finishing is a treat. And his final pick is Arran Barrel Reserve, one that I missed. Good shout, Menno. €30 just to get the party started. A bourbon matured entry-level expression, which does the job nicely. He does say he's over budget, but that Victoriana had to be in the lineup. And it depends on where you are. I cannot repeat that enough. The prices I'm sharing with you are based on, of course, where you live on the planet. Geography does play into it. I've got a couple more of these lists that I'll read out to you guys a bit later. It's interesting to get your perspective. And if you want to use the comment section below to talk about these whiskies, please do. Remember, I'll also be using the chapter markers in the hope to keep everybody up to speed with what's been recommended, and they can just skip ahead to the things that interest them. Let's move on to the next. What am I going to pour from this flight of 5? Let's go with this one. You've probably caught a flash of that, what it is. It's not like it's a big spoiler, is it? But you will figure out that there's a theme to all of these 3 sets of 5 whiskies. There is something that is in common with them all. And it's not deliberate. It just is what it is. It's the way the market and the dynamics are working. This is an incredible whiskey. I just got a wee whiff of peat there, and I know there is supposed to be some peat in this. I never find it, but I got it here. Just as it's poured fresh, but no, now it's gone all kind of lemon. Fruity, fruity, fruity. Oh, it's a terrific whiskey. And I did go and push the boat out a wee bit on price on this one because it just has to be in there. I am a wee bit fed up of people being told that they need 40% ABV whiskies, that they need soft and they need easy and they need rounded. If it's somebody that's just going to want to drink and never pick it up again, you're absolutely right. But if it's somebody that's going to grab and latch onto whiskey, they're looking for a hook. They're looking for flavour. They're looking for impact. They're looking for a drink that makes it different. Because 40%, easy to consume, watered down, that's just the same as every other drink that exists on the planet. That's not what whiskey does well, especially malt whiskey. What whiskey is able to do is grab you, to freeze time, to suck you into the glass and make you wonder what's just happened. And it's not 40% wings clipped, watered down, diluted nonsense that does that. It's not. What does that? It's big, rich, deep, impactful flavour. What does that, whether we want to admit it or not, is ABV. ABV is such a powerful communicator. It is such a powerful delivery mechanism when it comes to flavour and texture and spice and weight and mouthfeel. It's intrinsic to the experience, to the engagement in the glass. Especially, I'll say it again, when it comes to malt whiskey. This is a peach, and it's also very spirit forward. It's going to be the last one that I talk about in this lineup of 5. This is a revelation I'm going to share with you now. It's not a malt whiskey, but it is made of 100% malted barley. This is an incredible whiskey, and it's so inexpensive and so affordable. I hope that this is starting to creep out to where you are, because this is not only good, this is interesting whiskey. I've told you I've had anecdotes in the past about how I've used this in blind challenges. Some of you that are in here tonight might have been present in the blind challenges where I've slotted this in, and people have been really taken aback by it. Everything I've got on hand is from the first batch or first couple of batches. It's back in stock again everywhere now, and people are able to pick this up again. I don't know if it's a different batch. Your mileage may vary, but this has been incredible whiskey, 26, 27 pounds. It's a blended Scotch whiskey, but everything is malt. How can that be? This is using pot still malt whiskey from Loch Lomond, blended with column still malt whiskey. That's 100% malt that's been put through their copper column still at Loch Lomond. What we have here is a single blend. Now, that's not a legal category. It's long since gone. It's not an SWA thing anymore, but that's what it is. It's a single blend. The Langston Whisky Company are the people behind this, but it's made at Loch Lomond. We know this, and I recommend this to everybody. I had a brand ambassador who was on recently. You might remember we hung out together. Oh my goodness, his name has. How can I have forgotten his name? It's going to come back. Stuart. I'm sorry, but he works for Anok. He works for Inverhouse Distillers. Thai beverage, and he was on doing what the industry drinks. My goodness, Stuart Baxter. Such a foggy brain, Stuart. I'm so sorry. But we were talking about this, and he was really intrigued by me telling him about it, and he sent me a message to say, Roy, I bought a bottle. Aye, no bad. Good stuff. £26, and I know that a lot of you guys out there are enjoying this too. And this is the type of thing, if you want to highball it, like it says on the label, if you want to sip it neat, it does everything. And it's interesting, as well as being good whiskey and good value. This could go in front of any of these 5. Any of these 5, no problem, all day long. I love this stuff. I'm always going to have this as long as it's available. It's terrific. I'm going to fall off my seat tonight. Next up, I'm going to stay with the theme. We won't go into single malt yet, but we'll go to the second one of the second lineup of 5. And this is a revelation for me, and I'm tearing through this. Not only am I tearing through it personally, I'm sharing it and I'm gifting it like crazy because it's inexpensive and interesting and something I want to share. It's for the enthusiast. There's no doubt. This is spirit forward. It is spirit forward. But this is fairly new to UK shores and shelves. It's a 2022 product. This is the Thompson brothers up there in Dornoch. This is their SRV5, which stands for Station Road VAT 5. And what they've got is that they've got this big European oak vat. I think it's 1,200 litres it can hold when it's full, but they're never going to bottle 1,200 litres from it because they're constantly running a Solera system. So they'll fill it to a certain point, whether that's 800, 1,000 litres, I don't know. I feel like I should have researched this. I'm kind of winging it a bit now. And they empty it down to a certain point, and that's the bottle batch by batch. So there's always going to be older stock left in there. The theory being the Solera theory, that there's always going to be an older element in there. Jimmy Leg is complaining, 2 bottles I can't get so far. I know, buddy, I know. Canada's a nightmare. It's a bit of a whiskey vacuum, depending on the province that you're in. I know, contextually, we need to, the price depends on where you are, the availability, the distribution, everything. But the ripples do feed their way out there. And one day, Jimmy, you might just find yourself staring at a bottle of Thompson Brothers SRV5, and at least when that happens, you potentially know what you're looking at. This is aged. Everything that goes into this vat is a minimum of 8 years old. So we've got an age statement here as well. Age statement, 48.5% ABV. They're pandering to the enthusiast. They know what ABV does as a delivery mechanism for flavour. This is spirit-forward whiskey. That, despite my kind of this immunity I have to peat, sometimes I pick up a peated whiskey and I don't even notice I get peat on this. So there's enough peat in this for it to be noticeable. And it's terrific whiskey. I think it's going to get better time after time after time. And the icing on the whiskey cake, £35. What they've been able to achieve here is exactly what the market is asking for. The outturns will not be big. I don't know how they're going to manage that. I don't know how they're going to keep up with demand, but they've pulled off a blinder here and it's been well received. I gifted bottles of this like crazy over the summer, and I hope that the folk that I've given it to have been enjoying it. I enjoy it. Spirit forward. It is spirity. Thompson Brothers SRV5. Ian Bruce is saying, a great wee distillery. Was cool to see them in action when up there during the Easter holidays. I've not been up to Dundalk yet. I would love to go up there. Anthony Sillett, this looks like a new name. Thompson Brothers Blended Malt Whiskey, 8-year-old SRV5 Blended Malt, 48.5%, 34. But he's literally typed it in there, so he's been excited enough to share it. Nice to welcome you, Anthony. Jeff Whiskey is saying the camera is focusing on that beautiful cork. Okay. Yeah, it's on autofocus tonight, so hopefully, hopefully. You don't need to see me, as long as you can hear me, right? Alistair Gray is saying, have you tried the latest sherry blend as well? No, but I've spotted it, and it might have been on its way to me, but it's not here yet, Alistair. But thanks for pointing it out. And that's not a blended malt. It's different. It's not a Solera. That's their sherry-focused blend. Thompson Brothers are doing great things. They know because they're enthusiasts. So they know what the enthusiasts want. It's incredible the disconnect sometimes. Yeah. Anyway, it's nice to welcome you in, Jeff. Good to see you, buddy. Jeff Whiskey. Okay, I've got two more, and I'm going to switch it to malts now. Okay, we've been through the blended malts here. We've got a blend up here. I'm going to switch to malts, and then we'll finish on another blended malt. Two malt whiskies here. And this is one that I'm on my second bottle of now, and I'm a wee bit surprised about that because I was a wee bit dismissive of it, I think. But I've realised it's good. And I was sipping this at a pal's house, and he told me that he'd poured me a Bunnahabhain, and I wasn't sure what it was, and I couldn't get my head around it, but as the glass went, I was enjoying it. And it's been on the vPub before, but I don't think I've enthused about it too much because it is a wee bit youthful and it is a wee bit spirit forward. But we have to remember what I've got in my hands here. I've got a Bunnahabhain that's 46.3% ABV and delicious and weighty. It's got all of that weight. Bunnahabhain is people think that Bunnahabhain's light because it's not a peated Islay. Bunnahabhain's not. Bunnahabhain is dense and rich and coastal and heavy. And this does display that, albeit at a young age. And of course, Bunnahabhain is no different from any other malt whiskey. It does suffer from batch variation, so your mileage may vary depending on the batch that you have. I wish they would put batches in the label. I'll continue to campaign for that forever, but hey, it's malt whiskey. It can be batch variable. Okay, we've got Bunnahabhain Stiuireadair. Stiuireadair is Scots Gaelic for helmsman, apparently, and of course the helmsman is part of the Bunnahabhain identity. You can see him there, westering home. This is £30 and less. Most of the time in the UK, very often on offer, still supermarket available, and it's 46.3%. I don't know if it's natural colour. I wish they would put it on. No, they do. It states on a label. Roy, just read the wee tiny writing there, just as the light caught the gold type. But the camera will not be able to focus on that, but we'll try down the bottom. Natural colour it is, non-chill filtered. No age statement, but we've learned that no age statement doesn't always mean a bad experience. Even Ralphie from next year, as you heard from last week, is going to start considering non-age statements to review, the ones that he wants to share with his community. I think this is a fantastic thing to pull off by Bunnahabhain. I don't care, it doesn't have a 10 or a 12-year-old age statement on it. It's just good, fair, well-priced whiskey, and I think it's the type of flavour bomb that you can put in front of people and have them contrasted to the other things I'm sharing with you, and it has an impact. This is good whiskey. I know it's not an age statement, but they've kept everything else natural. They're looking after us. And it's fairly priced. Got a creaky chair tonight as well. Jimmy's saying, I want 0 for 3. I wonder if you can go 0 for 5. I thought I'd say a yellow label, so I'll hold out a hope for number 5. Well, listen, buddy, I know. I'm speaking to you from where I am. You and I should get on one night and maybe you can have 5 and I can have 5 and see how much overlap there is. It's down to the availability and the draconian legislation they have in the majority of the provinces in Canada. And I think you do suffer from it, and my heart goes out to you. But we're going to get you over to Scotland. We're going to fill your suitcase with all the good stuff that you can't buy and take it back home. Anyway, Jimmy, maybe you'll get this malt whiskey. This is my pick of a pretty good range that's getting better and better and better. You might have recognised from the neck already that I'm talking about Loch Lomond. This is a 12-year-old age statement at 46% ABV. It does have colour in it. Unfortunately, I've mentioned this ad nauseum. You would have heard it in the recycled review as well. I would want Loch Lomond just to go that extra tiny little step. Natural colour. Just bring it. Just bring it. Whatever the colour is, we'll love it. And we'll shout about it. This is their Inchmurrin 12-year-old, 46% ABV, non-chill filtered, great value, £35, maybe £38, £39, depending on where you are. Almost always sub 40. Great sipping, easy whiskey that's delicious. You sip in a couple of glasses of this and then go back down the stairs to some of the things I've previously shared, and the contrast is jarring. They've managed to put together an easy, enjoyable whiskey that's just balanced and fruity and sweet and accessible at 46% ABV, that when you go back to sipping what you thought was previously easy and enjoyable, that's left tasting insipid. And I don't mean everything that's over my shoulder, but some of the whiskies that are over my shoulder. Certainly a lot of whiskies out there at lower ABV. This shows the body and the texture that the 46% can bring. They've also got the Inchmurrin, which is peated, and they've also got the standard 12-year-old, which is just ever so slightly peated. This would be my pick for most. This is the fruity style, seems to be the community favourite as well. Inchmurrin, Loch Lomond 12, but it's the Inchmurrin expression. Fantastic stuff. Jimmy, maybe this is available where you are. One more to share. See what Jimmy's saying. Reb Mordecai is saying Michael Henry is in the vPub. Michael Henry's often in the vPub. And, you know, there's a few kind of industry folk that do kind of hang out in the background, because guess what? A lot of people that work in the industry are super passionate about and feel very fortunate that they work in whiskey and they love it and they love sharing it and they love being part of the community. But I think what happens is sometimes they mention or they speak and they're not under an alias or a pseudonym or a handle or whatever you want to call it. And sometimes, you know, they do have to end up fielding a lot of questions and things. Michael Henry's super, super generous with his time. But I think I would do well to remember that too. I need a steampunker, says Chris Pollack. That's right, to see that natural colour statement on the label there, the Bunnahabhain label. And Graham is saying, time to look out the WD-40. See, it's not squeaking. I think it's just when I lean, Graham. Yeah, it's just when I put my weight over that side. Time to get out the WD-40 right enough. Jimmy Legg is saying, I put my 5 in the Patreon. Let's see then, Jimmy. Can I find that? I bet you I probably could. I did pick out comments from Patreon, Jimmy, but I don't know if I missed yours, if it went in late, or if I skipped past it. But let's see what Jimmy's pick of 5 would be. Jumping into Patreon now. Here we go. I'm scrolling down. And I don't see a Jimmy Legg comment. Load more comments. There is a lot more. Tom Scaramuzza. Glen Scotia Double Cask. Good shout, Tom. William Padant, number one, is saying a Tomatin Legacy. Yeah, you might hear that talked about at some point in the future. Maybe not this evening. Hey, let's see. Here we go. Jimmy Legg has. He suggested Springbank 10 at $90 Canadian, which is about £50, I think. Port Charlotte 10 at 72. Leadchick 10 at 63. Good calls. Craigellachie 13 at 60. Glencadam 10 at 65. Wow. You pay more for Glencadam, Jimmy, than you do for Craigellachie 13. Wow. He's saying 350 Canadian dollars and 66 cents. Or maybe that's multiplied by 0.66. That's the exchange rate he's using, £229.50. He's saying, oops, that's as low as I can go. Whiskey is a real luxury in Canada. Aye. So it is price, but look, you've got a big age statement on all of those, and every single one is a single malt and a stellar sought-after single malt Leadchick, Port Charlotte, Springbank, Craigellachie and Glencadam. They're all great. One or two of those might feature tonight, Jimmy, but they're all pricey too. Do we need 10 or 12-year age statements to enjoy our whiskies now? Blind tasting is starting to teach me that that's not the case. I'll use the Leadchick Sinclair series against your Leadchick 10 that I discovered in a blind challenge just before the summer break on this very vPub to prove people prove to people that's probably not the case. Some super chats coming in, guys. I don't want to miss this. Whiskey Straight Al has brought me a dram. Cheers to you, Roy. You make whiskey inviting to all in a unique way like no other can. Cheers, mate. Al, that's really, really nice words, buddy. Christ, you'll have me blushing. Al, thank you very much. Enjoy your content too, my friend. Whiskey Straight Al is out there on YouTube, doing tremendous things over there from Northern Ireland too. Al, I wonder if you're going to make it over with the rest of the Northern Irish contingent later in the year for the Glasgow Whisky Festival. That would be amazing to see there. My buddy Rolf has brought me, he's brought me, no comment. Rolf, did you hit enter too quickly? He's brought me a very generous dram. It's nice to see you in, Rolf. And oh no, he's bought another one. Congrats on 400 plus patrons, Roy. It's a joy to follow all your projects in whiskey. Roy, love whiskey, slant you fantastic. He's been trying to put in his emoji there as well. Rolfie, I hope you're doing well, buddy. One of the privileges is the friendships I've been able to enjoy through this thing that I do. And Rolfie, I count you as one of those, my friend. I always enjoy my time with you, and I look forward to the next time. Thank you for your drams, my friend Slancha. Jimmy is saying I don't need age statements, but the only decent non-age statement here is a Buna, and that's $100 Canadian. That's cheaper than we pay here. It's much cheaper. It's 50, 55, 60 pounds. A Buna is more expensive than that. Ephead is saying the last part was emoji. Yeah, I picked that up, buddy. Terrific, Rolfie. So Jimmy's struggling a wee bit. Let's see if the fifth one in the second lineup is something he can get. The one I'm sipping, the one I'm enjoying tonight, the one that everybody's talking about, it is one of these blended malts that is a wee bit spirit forward. They're using young whiskey in here. There's no doubt about that, but they've managed to put forward something that's fantastic. Something that's young and spirity, but still brings fruit. And it's not called Orchard House just to give us the power of suggestion. This is a genuinely fruity product. There's a wee bit of salt in it at times. There's a wee bit of peat in it at times. There's just something very engaging and grippy about this whiskey. Something almost kind of, the texture almost brings a wee bit of effervescence, that young spirity thing doing its part. 46% ABV. We know it to be non-chill filtered, and we know it to be natural colour. How do we know that this is natural colour? Because it's from Compass Box and they put it on the label. I did spend a wee bit more for this. But let me ask you, the price of this is the same as that blended malt Johnnie Walker, 15-year-old over there. You put the two of them together, you're going to see that one has got non-age statement, and the Johnnie Walker 15 has a 15-year-old age statement. You're going to see them at a similar price, recommended retail. You're probably going to choose the Johnnie Walker. Taste first, you'll choose this. Forget the age. This is natural. This is more flavorful. It's more interesting, and you'll want to pour another glass. The Johnnie Walker 15, I'm not kidding. I'm being absolutely genuine with you. I'm not having a discussion about ABV here, but it's part of it. It is absolutely part of it. This is the one I would take every time. So there we go. There we have our second tranche, if you like, of whiskies that I believe are interesting. Now look at that lineup compared to what we had a minute ago. I think that's a much more interesting lineup. Heavy hitters. Yes, it's a discussion about ABV. It's a discussion about natural presentation. How much more have we had to pay? I've admitted that I had to pay more to do this, to bring my mini collection up to this standard. I still met the target. This is £175 versus the previous lineup was 150. So that means I'm paying £5 extra per bottle to get this. If we talk about price and value, does that £5 extra bring value? Absolutely. I don't think there's many of us in here that would choose the first lineup over this. Now, that's not me being dismissive of the first lineup, but it's me pointing out where it's pointed towards, who it speaks to, the quality, the engagement, the extra hook, the flavour. If we're going to cut things tight over the course of winter and for the year or 2 years or who knows how long ahead, if we're going to have to cut back on luxuries, if we're going to need to change our focus, are we going to go cheap or are we going to go value? For me, I know what I would choose. I think you're going to get a lot more fun out of these 5 than the first baseline 5. But it's just me, it's just my opinion. Callum Craig is saying, enjoying this, Roy. List 1 is an Amazon list. List 2 is more for the enthusiast. There's no doubt, Callum, there's no doubt that that is part of it. Absolutely. It's difficult. I don't want to come across as being kind of aloof. I don't want to trigger snobbery alarms anywhere. I'm talking about flavour. And I'm also trying to keep the price. Listen, the Thompson Brothers outturn is very small, but the Compass box is available everywhere. I'm trying to focus on engagement. That's what I'm trying to do. Let's jump into Patreon, pick up another couples. Papa Z in Patreon said, Loch Lomond 12, $37. Great fruity dram with a puff of smoke to finish. That's the standard Loch Lomond. I've put forward the Inchmurrin. Absolutely good call, Papa Z. Balcones, he's pulled out a Balcones. What? But he's in the States. It matters where we are. $30 US. He's talking about the pot still bourbon, rich, layered, oily, and fantastic. I'm a fan about Balcones too. Scarabus, great call. That's the non-age statement one he's talking about at $36. He's saying Islay on the cheap. I have not focused on Islay on the cheap tonight because there's going to be a vPub sometime in the future that's going to focus and dial in specifically on that idea. Not exclusive to Islay, hopefully, because there's so many other things available out there. But Islay on the cheap now has a lot of stiff competition elsewhere, and there is still a lot of good, cheap Isleys. Do they bring value? That's for a future vPub. Scarabus is worthy. Compass Box Glasgow blend. He's talking about that. It's a blended Compass Box, blended whiskey. So there's grain in there as well. It's 43%. Layered malt and fruity and smoky, he's saying. And he finishes off with Tomatin 12 that he's able to pick up at $38, which is a great price. A great lighter dram. Good calls. The Tomatin 12, I think, is 43% as well. Helen Widdowson, also, she's saying topical topic, and there's some really great drams out there that perform above their perceived value, such as the Hero Dram Glencadam 10-year-old. Good call. Bunnahabhain 12, staple around these parts. Everybody talks about it. Not one of my favourites, but it's always a staple, I'll be honest. Legic 10-year-old is one of my favourites. Good call, Helen. And she's also talking about Loch Lomond Peated single grain. £22 I've seen that for in the supermarket. All malt. It says single grain, but it's all malt. Thompson Brothers SRV 5 and Douglas Ling's Regional Malts, Tomatin Legacy, and some of the drams on offer from indie bottlers such as the Whiskey Broker range. Plenty to choose from, but would probably go with the following. So she's had to distill it down to Loch Lomond single peated grain. That's the green label one at £22.50. Thompson Brothers SRV 5, £35. It's £35 everywhere. There's no variation on that price. Great job by Thompson Brothers. Bunnahabhain 12-year-old, £35. You're going to pay more than that typically for it. You can pick it up for that, but the retail of the Bunnahabhain 12 is higher, Helen. But yeah, £35 it's still available for. Cutty Sark Prohibition, 50% ABV, I think that one is, at £23. blended whiskey, of course. And of course, she's put in there the Glencadam 10-year-old at 35. And then she's saying with a bit of change too. So we should probably pick up a bonus bottle of JW Black for cocktails and highballs. Terrific stuff. Lots of things out there to keep the enthusiasts like Andy and Helen interested too. We should move on to the last 5. How am I getting on for time, and why have I moved away from my dashboard here? Not too bad. Will we make it under 2 hours tonight? Probably not, guys. There will be a quiz at the end, so please stay and enjoy that. You will think it's pretty easy tonight, up until a certain point, and then it's not going to be easy. Falsgraph is saying the bold flavour hook is a thing. I know so many people who got hooked to whiskey through Lefroy or Ardbeg, but an Orchard House does the job just as good. I agree. This old crock about we need to give people smooth and light and just, it's not valid. That's not what brings people into really understanding the unique value proposition that is whiskey. It's flavour. Stop taking it out. Stop diluting it. Stop treating us all like we're just children. We can handle it. 40% ABV is already super hot. So go the extra 46 and bring the super hot with flavour, impact, spice, mouthfeel. Don't strip away. Tommy Elmer is saying, sad to hear you're not going to Islay. Going to Islay tonight. Was hoping to hear good things about Kilchoman. Oh, sorry. I hope that's not a spoiler for you then, Tom. At Kilchoman, I mean, Machier Bay, you can pick up Machier Bay. That's probably an entry-level product. You can get it for £35, but it's typically 40. Yeah, there was quite a few potentials from Islay, but the more and more I sucked into this thing tonight, the more I realised that I was going to dilute the potential future vPub. And I think it's valid for me to do that because peated whiskey should weave into this, and I do have a few peated whiskies or a couple of peated whiskies with peat, let's say. But there's also an argument that there are some folk out there, swathes of the community, that really love their peat and they want deep dives into peated nights as well. So that's kind of why I've carved that out. I hope it makes sense. I hope you'll forgive me for it too, Tom. Peated is saying, with prices going up, another twist is to pour smaller drams. 20 instead of 25ml, then you can buy 4 bottles of good stuff instead of 5 bottles of May. Quality over quantity. I agree, Frank, you're absolutely spot on. I am not serving up May tonight. I'm going to serve up at least the second tranche that I've just shared with you, and the third one that's coming up now, whiskies that I would recommend that you can still keep your 25ml pours. That's the point of tonight. And David Larenko is saying is Lefroy quarter cask, 48%, €50, going with no remark for the same reason that Tom is complaining about not getting his Islay whiskies. It won't come up tonight. But quarter cask, I'll be honest with you, David. Lefroy quarter cask for me is a really good proposition that I used to recommend heavily. And I have had a bottle of Lefroy quarter cask that was pretty hot and awful, and I struggled with it. I also had a friend who had a bottle of Lefroy quarter cask that had the exact same experience with it. He was also a fan. So, and I know it's malt whiskey. It does go through batch variation and things, but it's meant that I haven't put a quarter cask back on the shelf in a long time. But just based on you mentioning that, puts it back on my radar again. Maybe it's one that I should pay attention to again. 48% ABV from their quarter cask makes it good. There are quite a few Lefroigs out there at 48% ABV, and it certainly makes it a more interesting proposition. Sam Clark is saying, that looks like a new name, Sam. 2 good blends to also consider would be the Ben Nevis Stew, I agree, and the Adelphi blend. Both slightly harder to find, but both between 25, and the comment stops there. The Adelphi blend, it's probably the Dancing Man blend. And the Ben Nevis Stew, it's not exclusively Ben Nevis, of course. It can't be because it's a blend, so it's got grain whiskey in there as well. But yes, both of those whiskies are kind of lesser spotted blends. So you would probably need to be shopping in a specialist outlet to get them. Both good calls, Sam, and it's nice to welcome in what I think is a new name. And Tom Elmer is saying, I'll stick around for the Islay version, never fear. Thank you. Thanks, Tom. Cheers. I've got 5 more to hit you with, and then we can go on with the quiz. I've only had 2 drams tonight. No, I had a dram before I went live as well. Three clean glasses here, but I'm only going to fill 2, I would imagine, tonight. But I've got 5 interesting whiskies to share with you before we go into the quiz tonight. And I do think that while they will not necessarily step up a level from these 5 decent whiskies I've got here, they will certainly go toe-to-toe with them and give you some more variation. Peter Leigh saying, I'm surprised you don't have a core range Ardnamurchan in there. £45, it would be the most expensive whiskey in the lineup. I do think it's fantastic whiskey and fantastic value. But no, it doesn't make the cut. There are times, there's going to be lots and lots of other times for me to talk about Ardnamurchan, and people are probably, they've heard me talk about Ardnamurchan at length in this environment, Peter. Nice to see you in. You've obviously just finished your shift. Karsten T, that looks like potentially a new name, Karsten. I think it is. Just got myself the Klein Leash Aquavita, Game of Thrones 51.2% and Craig Ellicky 13 today. Lately not buying any sherry aged ones. What's wrong with me? It's your palate. Like my palate, like everybody's palate shifting, where we loved sherry matured whiskies, we love peaty whiskies, we love bright and floral, we love fruity, we love sweet, we love, you just it's mood. And the mood isn't just about the evening or whatever, it's you can spend months or years with a preference and you kind of get stuck a wee bit. But the more whiskey enjoyment you do, the more sharing you do, the more you have friends pouring for you, the more you expand your palate and be able to appreciate more and more. But if you're stuck in your lane and you're off sherry for a while, stay there and be quite happy there. Jamie is in. Good to see you, Jaime. He's saying, I had Omar sherry for the first time a few weeks ago. Rich, deep, dense, all for £31. Now, that's a Taiwanese whiskey, and I've got one down there that I'm enjoying very much. And I believe that if you're in an airport or something and you can pick it up, the value is great. Sachin Kent is in. Good to see you, Sachin. He's saying, I would add Deanston 12 to my list. It's been mentioned inside Patreon as well. But Deanston 12, the retail of that is north of £40 too. And while it doesn't exclude it from this, I think it's quite obvious. Deanston 12 is marvellous. Really marvellous. One of the best. Danny Hebbington is saying, Deanston Virgin Oak is a great wee dram for the price. Good call, Danny, absolutely. And Sachin is saying as well, it's Old Pulteney 12. The Old Pulteney 12 I had in a blind tasting recently was awful, absolutely awful. It's put me off replacing my Old Pulteney 12 that's now empty. Okay, let's get on to the last 5. I'll reach out and I'll do the same kind of thing. I'll go with the interesting ones first, and then I'll finish on 2 malts. 2 malts are going to be popular, I think. We're back in Loch Lomond again. That means there's 3 Loch Lomond whiskies. I mean, the Glasshouse doesn't really count because it's not Loch Lomond, even though it's made there. We've got Inchmurrin 12, but we've got the 3rd at Loch Lomond of the night. Now, depending on who you speak to, a lot of people will prefer the red label version, which is unpeated. You would have seen that in yesterday's recycled review, one I bought in Spain for €22. This I paid £22 for. Helen has already mentioned it. A couple of you guys have mentioned it in the chat tonight. The green label one is the peated version. I think it's less available than the red label one. I'm not sure. But what's amazing about this, we've talked about this at length, I know, but this says coffee still on the label. This is single grain Scotch whiskey, but it's 100% malt. So the same wash that you would put through a standard pot still goes through a coffee still. It's malt whiskey, but it's distilled in a different way. It's offered at 46% ABV, and this is a pretty unique whiskey. Yes, it's spirit forward. It's the peatiest, smokiest whiskey, this green label one that I'm going to share with you tonight. But at that price point, if we're talking about engagement and flavour and interesting whiskey, this is delivering it. I always, for this one, this bottle, for me, there's only maybe 1 dram left in this now. It always reminds me of smoky foam bananas. And I know that some people might say foam bananas, you know, that's a bit of a fault in whiskey and nonsense. For me, this is delicious. It's sweet and easy and smoky. And it's also brilliant, I've discovered, at smoky cocktails. Terrifically so over summer, which is what the one I enjoyed in Spain was really good at doing too. Excellent whiskey, very interesting, inexpensive, and 46% ABV and unchill filtered. Good job in that fairly inexpensive, still interesting whiskey from Loch Lomond. Celtic Drama is saying the green is fantastic in my opinion. Good. Here's another interesting whiskey. Thompson Brothers pulled off an amazing trick, didn't they? £35 for that blended Solera VAT 8-year-old whiskey. Terrific stuff. There's a gap in the market for it. We're all after it. We're enjoying it. Spirit forward. Mamuka 1977, she spot me a dram. Cheers, Roy, with Deanston 18. Every time I go back to it, I realise how non-wine finish whiskey can be so damn good. Yeah, you're speaking my language now, Mamuka. Thank you very much for your dram, my friend. Cheers to you. Let's get one of these clean glasses for this. We're also in the realm of blended malt here. What a masterstroke by the guys down in Campbeltown. Campbeltown whiskey is almost impossible to get our hands on. You know, Springbank's gone, Glengyle's gone, Longrow Hazelburn's, everything. It's gone. It was just so difficult to get the last couple of years, although I think it's softening now. The demand is softening a wee bit, starting to stick on the shelf a bit. I want everybody to know that that noise is the stool, and it's nothing to do with me. Even to the point that Glen Scotia is becoming harder to get a hold of and more in demand now as well. We might start to see the prices getting more and more out of reach on the nicer Glen Scotias too, unfortunately. So what happens is that they're able to go and revive a blended brand, a blended Scotch whisky brand, and reinvent it as a blended malt in the Campbeltown Loch. How has nobody mentioned this? Is it because of availability? Yes, it's non-age statement, but it's from Mitchell's. It's going to be natural colour. It's 46% ABV presentation, and it's fantastic. This is a gift to me. I've had 2 or 3 bottles of this already, but this is batch 2. This was a gift to me by Tim, who's over from New York. I met him at the weekend, and he had bought me a bottle of this because he knew I enjoyed it. This is batch 2. I've already started sharing this with friends. I took it out at the weekend and we shared it together. It's fruity, it's salty, it's coastal, it's alive. It's bright, it's easy, it's balanced. It's just good, mouth-filling, a little bit spirity, but I'll go as far, maybe that I think this is less spirity than the first batch even. Just good blended malt whiskey. Because of that B word, blended, we're put off. Please don't be. Just consider that you're sipping good quality Campbeltown whiskey, and it's all malt, and it's all natural, and it's £35. I know that Jimmy is going to be having a conniption right now. 0 for 12. That's a horrible quiz score. I'm sharing stuff that Jimmy can't get in Nova Scotia. And I think the problem is not what whiskey we need to get to Nova Scotia. It's how much we need to work at getting Jimmy Leg out of Nova Scotia. Listen, I know there's a lot of people in Canada, whether it's the West Coast, the East Coast, where Jimmy is. It doesn't matter where you are. I know that you're going to have availability issues, but I would go as far to say that once the supply chain catches up, you might see things like that Thompson Brothers. You might see things like this Campbeltown Loch. I'll keep my fingers crossed for you, Jimmy. And at least when it does happen, you'll know what you're looking at. This is an excellent, excellent whiskey. Full stop. The fact that it's £35 just makes it an easy one to recommend. Great value. If that's what we're after, this brings value. Let's go for another interesting one. And I consider this to be interchangeable, honestly speaking. I've probably picked my least favourite from the range, interestingly, tonight. But let's imagine I went down there and grabbed the Timorous Beastie or the Scallywag or this one, Rock Island. Maybe where you are, you might pick up the Epicurean, or you might be a Peated and pick up the Big Pete. There's also the Campbeltown one, the Gauldrons. I haven't tried that for a while. But this is Remarkable Regional Malts from Douglas Lane. The entry level for this are all non-age statement. So believe me, there is a difference. If you buy the age statement one, the 10, the 12-year-old, depending on the range, there's a perceptible difference. There is better, more mature whiskey that goes into those. There is no question. But if you're an enthusiast and you love spirit-forward whiskies, you're going to find enjoyment in all of these, let's call them entry-level, remarkable regional malts, the non-age statement ones, let's say. And they're all natural at 48. This one is at 46.8% ABV. And they're all about 35, 36, maybe at the highest end, £37 of that order. Scallywag is Speyside, Timorous Beastie is Highland, Rock Island is the islands version of the Highlands. Big Pete is obviously Islay, Galdron's Campbeltown, Epicurean Lowlands, so it's got this regional concept, but it's using all the malts from each region to bring what they perceive to be a typical classic style from that region. I think it's a good concept. This one uses, I think, Highland Park, Jura. This one does use some Islay whiskey as well. And Arran, I think, is the other component in here. No matter, we've got a blended malt whiskey and it's great value, easy, whether you're after a Highland style, Speyside style, doesn't matter what it is. I still think that this is probably a great concept that's becoming more accepted, but it needs to be talked about a lot more. We're still hung up in our single malt, aren't we? Single malt, single malt. I get that. I understand what the attraction is with single malt. But if we're chasing flavor, rather than laser-focused individual experiences, we need to relax a little bit and realize the amount of value that's on offer from blending malt whiskey. Remarkable Regional Malts. Falscraft is saying, you make me take additional whiskey to my flight. Gonna get me a Scallywag 10 sherry that I bought in Limburg. Falscraft, that's right. We were in Limburg together. I was trying to, where did I see the hat? And of course it was Limburg. David Hong is saying, he's bought my wee dram to say, hi Roy, recently purchased the Deanston 15 organic for $50 in New York. Great value. I would say that that is ridiculously good value. It's about £60 here, I think, or maybe a bit higher now, I'm not sure. There's a 14 and a 15-year-old versions depending on the year. That is the most spirit-forward Deanston that exists. It's the least cask influenced is another way to say it, David. I love the stuff. I love the texture. I love the mouthfeel. And despite the fact that it's 15 years old, it is still very full-on malt-forward whiskey. I think it's terrific. Super clean. Very interesting whiskey as well. Great mouthfeel. Did Lechuk make it into the possible list? Not tonight, Tom. Am I going to let you down by not even having a peated Lechuk in there? How do I make it up to you, buddy? How do I make it up to you? I don't know how to. It's not. There's 2 malts to go. Not going to be finishing on a high note. I'm going to be finishing on popular whiskies that have been mentioned multiple times tonight. Jimmy is saying 0 for 13. Come on, pull out a Craigellachie 13. I've got Craigellachie 13, James. It's fitting. I could have pulled it out tonight. But do I want to bring out things that you've got and can get, or do I want to bring out things that I've looked at, tasted, and decide, no, this is interesting? Craigellachie 13 is a great whiskey, but I think the retail on it is about £45. Let's have a wee look here. That's the best value, Craigellachie. The 17-year-old is ridiculously expensive. The 23-year-old is eye-wateringly expensive. £50. It's 50 quid. Maybe in Canada, this is my point, Jimmy, where you are, it might be better. That's why the community needs to speak and share their lists too. I know that you would put Craigellachie on there because you've already mentioned it, and it's valid. It's a fantastic and interesting whiskey. But at £50, that 13-year-old age statement on there is playing to its age statement. And it's just a wee bit north of the comfort zone for what I tried to find interesting tonight. You can put your protest in as a wee sub-note later, Jimmy. Graham Fraser is saying, any Flora and Fauna bottlings tonight, Roy? No. All the Flora and Faunas are north of £50 as well, Graham. I love Flora and Fauna. It's my guilty pleasure. You know this. 43% notwithstanding. But none of them have made it in. None of them. Show me a Flora and Fauna that's regularly available for less than £50. We can talk. The Chininic 10, one of my favourites, still regularly north of £50. And it's not widely distributed. Jimmy Legg's already having a conniption about fairly widely distributed things. If I start to talk about Flora and Fauna, he's going to chuck his toys right out the pram. Indie bottlings of Craigellachie, such good value at the moment as well. Isn't it interesting how the wax and wane of indie bottlings, we could never find Blair Athol as an independent bottling. It was very rare. And in the last year or two, the market's awash with Blair Athol. You notice patterns. Helen, this is one that you've been shouting about a lot. How can I not talk about value and a value proposition without talking about this absolutely outstanding pillar of what's possible in flavour and engagement? Glencadam 10, it's all natural. Tells us all over the label it's natural, and it gives us an age statement as well, and 46% ABV. And they charge us £35 for the pleasure. I probably drink more Glencadam 10 than any other single malt right now. And I put it in the hands of more people than any other single malt right now. We talk about flavour and hooks and needing that thing that people can connect with. This is gentle. It's light. It's like whiskey wearing slippers. And yet it still has the hook. It's got that lovely, light, gentle spice. It's got the fruit. It's got the malt. It's got everything that makes a perfect Highland whiskey. Just so honestly made, so honestly displayed, and it's £35. I want this to exist always, and I want whiskies like this to always exist. It is just terrific stuff. Still, to me, remains a hero whiskey. Jimmy Legg is saying, there we go. I can't get it right now, he's saying, but normally it's available. He's celebrating he can get one. Helen is saying, a hero dram. About the time we had another one of those. Have you not got any on hand? And Peter Lee is saying, the Glencadam 10 was my latest purchase last week. Peter, get it open. Get it in your face funnel. You're going to love it, my friend. You're going to love it. So, you're a Daft Mill fan, aren't you? I'm not suggesting this is Daft Mill, but the profile lives in the same area of the spectrum as Daft Mill. That light, gentle spice, that lovely malty forward flavour. This is a good whiskey. This is a very good whiskey. 35 quid. Mamuka has bought me another dram. He said, I let all my friends try Aaron Amarone cask finish, 50% ABV as well. Quite high ABV, right? And you're sharing it with friends. It was a super hit. They all loved it. Me too, he's saying. Exceptional. Makes people enjoy the water of life. So Amarone is very, very specific. Aaron have this series of wine finishes, of which Amarone is one, higher ABV as well. So you're sitting down sharing 50% ABV whiskey with your friends and you're all loving it. Stop this idea. Whiskey does not need to be, it's doing it a disservice, stripping things out of it, crowbarring it into being what it doesn't want to be. It's malt whiskey. If it needs to be clear in a glass, serve it at 46% plus ABV. If that's important to you, clarity. It's small batch made. It's not going to play the same game as grain whiskey. It's something that's mass produced. It's made batch by batch by batch, and it's matured in these little vessels. It doesn't want to be consistent. Put batches on the label. Not because we want to compare it and say, oh, this one's better than that one. But when we find one that suits us and our palate, we want to find more of the same. And also putting a batch signifier on the label would help us celebrate the batch variation of batch-made whiskey. Somebody's going to teach me to stop saying this and show me why it can't be like that. Because it's getting to the point where I don't understand why it isn't like that. It's crazy. Anyway, Mamuka, thank you very much for your dram. Cheers to you, and I hope you and your friends continue to enjoy all the Aaron whiskies. Last one before we get on to the quiz tonight, and I have not talked about this on the vPub for a long, long time, and I apologise for that because I had a sip of this researching for this vPub on Sunday night, and I was shocked how good this was. And it's been in a bottle for a long time. It's been open. It's maybe had time to settle. But we were at the Whisky Club on Tuesday night, and somebody held up something and we're sipping it, and they talked about wax in it. And it was a whiskey I'd never had wax in before. It was actually my Loch Lomond. I'd never had wax in it. But Stefan, one of the guys at Whisky Club, found wax in it. And it struck me because I was drinking this whiskey and I found wax in it on Sunday night. And I'd never found wax in this whiskey before, but it's there. This is Deanston, but it's not the 12-year-old. This is the less expensive sibling of the Deanston 12-year-old. This is the Virgin Oak. Now, of course, this is going to be oaky. It's a younger whiskey. They're going to be using the cask to kind of bring a lot more flavour into this and things, and it's easy to dismiss this whiskey. I'm going to take this clean glass. It's not clean. This one's clean. I'm going to pour just a tiny wee drop of this in to sip along with you as I speak about this. This, out of all the whiskies I was trying on Sunday night, tiny little sips just to refresh my memory, this one jumped out the glass. It was incredible. Okay, it's all kind of butterscotch and burnt sugar and toffee caramel, the typical notes that you're going to get with an active American oak, ex-bourbon, virgin oak cask. And on the palate comes the texture, comes the weight, comes the spirit, comes the grip, comes the fruit, everything. A big wave of flavour for £32. It is non-age statement, but everything else is checked. Non-chill filtered, finished in virgin oak casks, 46.3% ABV. Distell, please don't ever change that. You're just, it's perfect. We love you for it. On all the kind of Stiuireadairs, Bunnahabhain 12, all the other Tochicada, the Tochik, all of them 46.3, the Deanston's 46. Please don't change that. That's what malt whiskey demands. The whiskey is telling you that that's how to serve it. Because if you strip it below 46%, it's going to need extra pampering and dressing and nonsense, isn't it? It's going to need chill filtration. This is the right thing to do, and it comes across. Let's look for the wax I was talking about. It was obviously what I was sipping it in contrast with the other night. I'm kind of wanting it to be there now. But I got such a lovely grated crayon type vibe from it on Sunday. Still the texture, the gentle spice, the warmth, the flavour hook. If you're going to sit down with somebody and show them a peated whiskey and then a sherry bomb, and you want something to take that slot of what American oak does, this would be a perfect thing to pick up and say, oh, suddenly vanilla custard, that kind of caramelized burnt sugar. There's a confectionery in Scotland called Tablet, and the finish right now is tasting to me like a Scottish tablet. Just terrific whiskey, £32. Yes, it's not an age statement. We need to. It's just good. And again, we have a lineup of interesting whiskies that's so much more interesting than the first 5 that I put up there. That's not why I put those 5 up there. I chose 15 whiskies and divided it up. The first 5 were there as the benchmark. They were the cheapest, £150. The middle 5 I put up, 175. This 5, 175. Missed a couple of drams. Fabio Caballero is in. Good to see you, Fabio. Thanks, Roy. Always loved your content, and I'm glad that I can support your amazing work. Cheers. Fabio, it's wonderful to have you here. That's a very generous wee dram from you as well, my friend. Thank you, Fabio. It's wonderful to have you here too. Dribs and Drams from Canada is in. Virgin Oak is the only Deanston I've tasted yet. I love it. Just got Deanston 12 on allocation. Quebec, he's got the same issues as Jimmy. Looking forward to cracking it. The Deanston 12 is a purer, cleaner, more delicate, more balanced, less cask-reliant expression of Deanston. It's wonderful. It's one of the best single malt whiskies out there when it comes to a value proposition. I hope you enjoy it. Thanks for your dram, Dribs and Drams. And thanks to Fabio as well, Slantia. Okay, there we go. Let's just grab a couple of the ones that I missed from Patreon. From Erwin Laranaga, he's saying, I've tried. Seems I'm unable to break the $289 mark. Currently about £249. They are not in any order. They're just whiskey. They're always on the shelf when they're about. I have to start looking for a replacement. So Erwin's having difficulty, and I wonder if it's his focus on what he perceives might be good. When they're about half full, I start looking for a replacement, but he's going to share them with us. He's got Compass Box Orchard House, fantastic, we're in agreement there, but he's paying $45 for it. Glencadam 10, he's paying $49.96. Bunnahabhain 12, $62.99. 10th Street Single Malt, it's an interesting one. I would like to know what that's about, Erwin. $62, and of course, fan favourite Deanston 12, $63 at the end. He's paying a wee bit more. He's struggling to get down there. He's paying a lot of money wherever Erwin is, but he's shared what he's enjoying. Doc, Macallan Fine and Rare over in Germany. And Doc is in a place that's similar for a lot of us. Okay, so here's my list. If I would still buy whiskey, which I don't, he's saying, Kilchoman Sanic, $37.90. A good one. I said Machir Bay. I think the Sanic and the Machir Bay are similar price. Aaron 10, €28. Doc is in Germany. He's getting Aaron 10 for €28, which is £25. Longrow Peated, he's picking up for €33. Incredible, Doc. Glencadam 10, €33. Glenlivet licensed dram, a good call. So there's the illicit still in the licensed dram, which is in a series of higher ABV, more naturally presented Glenlivets, although they're a bit opaque on the labelling, certainly for the most recent one that was come out, which I thought was the better one. €38 he's saying. Total, €169 are £145 GBP. I have listed the prices I actually paid, and I'm sure some of them are no longer valid, but there is a decent leeway. Okay, so what he's saying is that maybe the R10, the long repeated, those prices have maybe gone up a wee bit. But that's what he paid. But his point is valid. If I would still buy whiskey, which I don't know if the industry is braced for all these people. It's just going to say, nah, I'm not going to buy. I've got enough. I'm just going to stop buying now. I don't know if they're ready for that. The glass Loch is robust. It's full to bursting. But what I want to talk about tonight is the whiskies that we can still buy because they are still available, attainable, because they're affordable, because they bring good value, and that they are interesting. I'll stand by every single one of my 15 bottles tonight. Caveats throughout, no doubt. But all of these things has to be something you can sit down with somebody, do a flight with them, evangelize, and tell a story behind every bottle, and know that if they don't like it, it was with your best intentions that you did the best you can. The Water of Life, a whiskey film. Oh, that must be Greg. Good to see you, buddy. So great to be back watching these on a Thursday and already making plans to buy some of these bottles. Damn it. I'm sorry to be that type of an influence, but I hope, Greg, if you are going to go out and do that, you're not paying as much as you might otherwise normally. I've tried to kind of focus on things that are affordable, as the theme has suggested tonight. Listen, we always drop down before lots of people pull a parachute and jump before we do the quiz at the end, and that's fine. That's why the quiz is at the end. But leave a wee like if you've enjoyed yourself tonight, if you've enjoyed hanging out with your friends in the lounge, or if you've enjoyed picking up on the replay. It means a lot to me when I see the wee thumbs up. I love it. Thank you so much for your support in the Recycled review yesterday as well. It was amazing to see. I've tried my very hardest to keep up with the comments there. When I went live tonight, there was only 2 or 3 comments that I've missed. And I'll try and catch that up tomorrow. I did make a promise to you at the start of the year that I'll try and respond to every comment that gets left on the vPub and on the Recycled reviews and any video content that I put out there. I don't think I've managed, but I think I'm very close to managing. Holidays and things and distractions notwithstanding. Anyway, thank you all so much. Thank you for your input. Thank you for sharing your ideas on Patreon. I didn't read out everyone. I got about 27 or 30 different lists of recommendations. I'd say Patreon as well. So it's great communal feedback going on in there as well. But I just copied and pasted some out that I could share with you tonight. There's a lot to be said for making whiskey affordable and making it widely distributed and available, as Jimmy's been pointing out all night. But I think what we have to remember is we have to keep it flavorful. Scotch whiskey is all about flavor. It's not about drinking. If you're making it to be as easy to quaff as possible, because the market demands that, the market can just go off and drink any other amount of booze they like. Whiskey is trying to tell us how it should be presented. And I know that I'm just an enthusiast and a romantic and I'm full of nonsense. But it's my experience too. It's not what I pay. It's not what I hear from friends. It's not what I demand. It's what whiskey tells me it's better at doing. And when it comes to malt whiskey specifically, it's better when it's natural. We can't demand natural all the time. We can't. There are places and times and contexts for everything. And you can't even lift two glasses up and compare one against the other and decide which is best. And somebody say, but that's not the natural one that you prefer tonight, because that's not what it's about. But after hundreds of whiskies, hundreds of flavour experience, hundreds of moments, the whiskey tells you that it's better when it's natural, when it's flavourful, when it's interesting. And I'm grateful that there's still a lot of it out there that we can easily afford, even when we face a crisis and our collections become a wee bit under pressure. Rick Johnson is saying, hey, so far I haven't got any questions of the quiz wrong. Rick, enjoy it while it lasts, my friend. Okay, let's jump in to the quiz at the end. What are we at? 2 hours? 156? No bad. It won't be a 3-hour one tonight. Most of the vPubs recently have been, but it still will burst the 2-hour mark. I hope that's okay with everyone. Please leave me a wee like if you are enjoying yourself and enjoy the quiz at the end. Multiple choice as always, of course, it always is. I think you might find this one a wee bit easy this evening. Like I say, up until a certain point. Pedro is saying, I have to leave now and I'll catch the replay. Thanks for the amazing insights. Pedro, please share how you got on in the quiz as well. And here's the other side of the coin. Here is Ben, Whiskey with Molly, celebrating the fact that it's quiz time. Good stuff, buddy. Nice to have you in. Good to have you in. I've just had to clear a comment there. What was that? I watched the vPub while making supper for my kids, so I have to leave a dram for later at night. Of course you do, because you're a good 6 or 8 hours behind the sun. Your dribs and drams over in Canada. Listen, I really appreciate it. And I hope you enjoy it when it's a wee bit later tonight. You can have a dram. Okay, question 1. Let's put the wheels on. Which Lowland distillery closed its doors in 1905? Then again in 1937, then again in 1993, and then once more in 2014. Now, this looks like a brutally hard question. Bear with me. Is it A, Bladnoch, B, Glengyle, or C, Deanston? Which Lowland distillery closed in 1905, 1937, 1993, then once more in 2014? That looks like a new name. Keith Shearman, celebrating 7 out of 10 last week and saying it's his record. Keith, it's wonderful to welcome you in. Maybe you'll be able to break it tonight. Strap in and see how you're getting on. Nice to welcome you here, Keith. Falscraft is saying, had 9 out of 10 on the replay last week. See what comes today. Good luck, Falscraft. Dig deep, see what you can do. I can tell you that, of course, this looks like a tricky one, doesn't it? But I've specifically asked which Lowland distillery. The only Lowland distillery there is Bladnoch. Glengyle is in Campbeltown, and Deanston is in the Southern Highlands, so it can only be Bladnoch. Incredible history. They are so patchy. So many other distilleries out there follow a similar pattern of open, closed, following the yin and the yang and the wax and the weighing, and all the challenges that whiskey production, certainly in this country, has faced over the years. I think it's the same across everywhere. Never have we had so many countries making so much whiskey. It's going to be interesting to see what the future holds. Question 2. The sound of Islay is the Scots Gaelic translation for which distillery? Which distillery name in Gaelic means literally the sound of Islay? Is it A, Kilchoman, B, Colilla, or C, Bunnahabhain? Peter Lee is celebrating 100%. He can leave now. And Drips and Drams is 1 out of 1, his best result yet. Good stuff, everyone. I should be pleasing the crowd right now. We always try to make the outward half comfortable. It's not about lulling you into a false sense of security. It's just into getting the rhythm going. Absolutely, you're getting this all very, very easily right. Yuri's in tonight, simply about whiskey. He's saying B for Kalila. Absolutely right, Yuri. Well done. Colila is Gaelic for sound of Isla. I used to think that stretch of water was actually the sound of Jura because it separates Isla and Jura, but no, it is the sound of Isla. Question 3. Which single malt famously found popularity in the 1960s Italy as a 5-year-old? So in the 1960s, Italy was responsible for claiming most of the stock from this specific distillery, and it was a 5-year-old product that they fell in love with. From which distillery? Was it A, Aber, B, Cardew, or C, Glengrant? Aye. Multi-Haggis Muncher has summed it up. Good, you're absolutely spot on, Matthew. I hope things are going well up at Kinnaird Head Whiskies. I hope you're on board for the Oswas again this year. Absolutely spot on. You're right that Glengrant, this is such a noisy stool tonight. Incredible. How come I've only noticed the noise of this stool once I'm live? It's not been squeaking until tonight. I don't have cars passing me by in the background like I did in the recycled reviews, but I've got other distractions. Spot on, Glengrant is absolutely right. Famously, and you can still buy a 5-year-old Glengrant for absolute buttons in Italy. The last time I was over there, I think it was about €19. And Jimmy Legg is suggesting that I may have put on weight. I think there might be some truth. Actually, I've lost a bit of weight. I was at my pudgiest I've ever been over winter last year. I'm glad to say that I've lost a wee bit. I could still do with losing a wee bit more, but it tends to be about from where rather than the overall thing. Multi-Haggis Muncher is saying, all good, Roy. Thanks. Terrific, Matthew. Wonderful to see you in, buddy. Question 4. What event is being held on November 5th later this year? I know you want to say Guy Fawkes, fireworks night or whatever if you're in the UK, but no, I'm talking about whiskey context. Is it A, the 5th Bastards Ball in Austin, Texas? I'm going. I can't wait. I'm looking forward to it. B, the Glasgow Whisky Festival. I'm going. Looking forward to it. Can't wait. Or C, the 2nd Online Scotch Whisky Awards. I'm going. Looking forward to it. Can't wait. What is happening on November 5th? Is it A, the 5th Bastards Ball, B, the Glasgow Whisky Festival, or C, the Oswas? What's happening on November 5th? Save the date. I'll give you a wee clue here on question 4 that this is something hopefully all of you can enjoy regardless of where you live on the planet, whether you can make it to Glasgow or Austin. No, you can just dial in over your internet and enjoy C, the Online Scotch Whisky Awards. I know we talked about it extensively last week, but I've picked up that some people are still asking me, you know, what's the deal? When do we? Here's a little schedule that we put together. If you go to oswa.co.uk, you can download this little infographic here, and this will take you through what's happening right now. The background nominations and refinement is happening now. It's going to be opened up to the wider pool of contributors in the coming days. They're going to work on it for a while, and on the 24th of September, everybody's going to get involved. It's going to go out to a community vote, public vote. And it stays live until well into October. And then we announce the winners after all of that's been sorted out on the 5th of November. So if you answered C, give yourself a point. Remember, you can download this kind of save the date infographic at oswa.co.uk. Question 5 is always a picture, thanks to Graham Fraser. He's just, obviously he can't participate in this tonight, but here's quite a striking building, a very specific image. If you've ever been here, you'll recognise it. Which distillery are we looking at? Are we looking at A, Glenkinchie in the Lowlands, B, Deanston in the Southern Highlands, or C, Oban in the Western Highlands? Which distillery are we looking at? Very distinctive architecture. You're good at leading each other. You're good at helping each other out. Yeah, absolutely right. I think you're all going to do very well on the outward half this evening. Been pretty easy to digest, comfortable things so far. Am I being a bit kind? It's going to get trickier on the return half. It is absolutely Deanston. We are looking at a cotton mill there. as Ebhead Rolf said. The Hogsheads is saying it says on the little white sign. Oh, if you're looking at it on your big telly, you'll probably be able to make that out. But aye, absolutely, it's Deanston. Decent whiskey, decent visitor experience, good cafe too. Question 6. It's a Dramface question. To celebrate the relaunch of the Caol Ila Visitor Centre, Diageo launched a limited 3,000 bottle outturn of 14-year-old Caol Ila at 53%. How much did it cost? How much does a 53% 14-year-old Caol Ila cost to celebrate bringing visitors back into the distillery again? Now, I always associate that with, lots of people coming and enjoying Caol Ila. 3,000 bottles only, unfortunately, limited edition. I can point out at this point in time that it's already sold out. A, it was £99. B, it was £120. Or C, it was £150. The reason this is a Dramface question is that Dramface does a daily review, of course. I loved today's write-up. Today's was a Doogie one today, and he did Spey for Mary, but he does a very reflective, it was his birthday, and he just kind of summed up what Dramface is about. So much about the human story, the context, the backstory, the relevance, the everything before it gets into the review. I loved that piece today. I hope you're enjoying dramface.com. I know I plug it a lot, but I'm very, very chuffed with it. It's going very well, and I hope you're enjoying it too. But we also have news content and feature content over there as well. There's a really interesting independent bottler one coming up from Erie Argyll that's currently in the works. But this is from the news section. How much was that 14-year-old Caol Ila? I can tell you that it was, as most of you have worked out, £150. Now, it does seem expensive. I've got a whole collection, a mini collection of whiskies that I've been able to put together for that same price as a single bottle of 14-year-old Caol Ila. No doubt it was probably quite a good bottling. I've not tried it, of course. I didn't buy a bottle. It's a moot point anyway because it's all gone now. Jimmy Legg is saying, when's the next podcast? You're talking about a Dramface podcast. I need to sit down. When I'm over in Texas, I'll get a chance to speak to the host, Gregor McQueen, and we'll be able to carve out a rough schedule. But listen, I know a lot of you have really enjoyed the Dramface podcast. The feedback that we get for that is incredible. I need Gregor to know how much people are enjoying that. The more comments that you can feed back in the Dramface website under the podcast section, it's being enjoyed, and we enjoy making it too. So Jimmy, hopefully we'll start a new podcast this year, or let's say a new season of the podcast. Question 7. Adelphi is an independent bottler and the owner of Ardnamurchan Distillery, but the name Adelphi was also previously what? What was Adelphi previously? A, it was a distillery in Campbeltown. B, it was a previous name for Deanston. C, the publisher behind the 1930s Whisky by Aeneas MacDonald. What was Adelphi, as well as being the independent bottler that we know today, and of course the owner of Ardnamurchan? The podcast is a beauty. More Jason, please. Are you after Judge Dredd? Are you after more Jason? Whiskey and Wine Trails is saying Doogie needs to make a lamp out of that Spey bottle. I listen, my Spey bottle as well is it has to sit on the top of the cabinet because it can't fit in the cabinet. It's either on the top or down the floor. You end up forgetting about it. Whoa, look at this. There's a banana skin here. I knew that this would trip a lot of people up. Adelphi is an independent bottler. It's also the owner of Ardnamurchan. It's also famously a distillery that was based just south of the River Clyde in the Gorbals area of Glasgow. It was never in Campbeltown. It was never, as far as I'm aware, a publisher behind the 1930s Whisky by Aeneas MacDonald. But it was, Adelphi was previously used to name what currently houses Deanston Distillery. Banana skin. It gets tougher on the inward half, definitely. But I hope that that's interesting to you. Deanston. It was not making whiskey when it was called Adelphi, but Deanston was once known as Adelphi. That's one I got from the Malt Whisky Yearbook. Thanks, Ingvar. Question 8. They are trickier now. Adams. Callington Mill, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, and Darby Norris distilleries are located where? Where are Adams, Callington Mill, and Darby Norris distilleries? Now, this is hard to keep up. So many distilleries all over the world. A, all of these three are in a single English county. B, all of these three are in a single American state. Or C, all of these three are on a single Australian island. Are they A, English county, B, American state, or C, an Australian island? Jimmy like is saying, well, that's a mental question. Fair though, and interesting. Yeah, I'm more comfortable, Jimmy, when you're pleased, I think. We need a Menno quiz back, don't we? We need to choose the right vPub to get Menno back in the saddle again. I do enjoy participating when he hosts the quizzes. Everybody seems to think that you are a knowledgeable crowd, that we're looking at a single Australian island. Most of you have gone for C. You're absolutely right. Specifically, we're talking about Tasmania, Adams, Callington Mill, Darby Norris, and so many other distilleries are on that tiny, well, it's not tiny, it's a sizable island, but it still remains an island in Australia. Tasmanian whiskey, it's a thing, and I've heard of hardly any of them, and I've got no chance of getting most of it too because it's such small scale, but yeah, they're doing great things. And the more that they're selling to the domestic market, the less that they're going to need whiskey from other markets, such as Scotland. I wonder how much of that has been factored in to the future plans. 9. Which of these is widely held to be the first female distiller? The first female distiller? A, Helen Cumming of Cardew. B, Margaret Nichol of Glenburgie. Or C, Bessie Williamson of Laphroaig. Which of those ladies is widely held to be the first female distiller, as far as the records are aware? We're talking legal distiller, of course, as well. Andrew Pierce is letting Jimmy Legg know that Derby's a town in England, but not Derby, as far as I know. Yeah, and Adnams is also a distillery, so I was cheeky when I said Adams. So yes, I am being deliberately obtuse on the back, the return half. A, Helen Cumming of Cardew. B, Margaret Nichol of Glenburgie. Or C, Bessie Williamson of Laphroaig, which was the first female distiller. I can tell you that Bessie Williamson was the first female manager and owner at Laphroaig from the 1950s to the early 70s. Margaret Nichol was the first distillery manager of Glenburgie, but Helen Cumming, this is a super interesting story. Lewis Cumming, Helen Cumming, Elizabeth Cumming, the history of Cardew is fascinating, but we're going back to 1846. She was the first female distiller. Elizabeth Cumming would follow in her footsteps, and the stories of that family and that time for Cardew, super interesting. Lots of wee funny anecdotes about how they foxed the excisemen and things like that. Okay, there's an ASHAT coming up. Of course there is. Let's see how the scores are doing with one question left to go. Jimmy Legg is saying, I had a 50-50 and missed 6 out of 9. Buddy, you're on a pass mark already, no problem. Multi-Haggis Muncher is celebrating a wild guess. Jean de la Cuisine is on 7 along with Julian Rickman. Julian, good to see you. And Steve Atkiss is in. Superb. He's a bit celebrating he got it. And Peated is on 8 out of 9. Terrific. Whiskey with Molly's on 9 out of 9 by the skin of his teeth. He's in good shape to swoop the ass hat. Let's see if you can make it through the ass hat at the end, buddy. Any other 9 out of 9s that's going to potentially drift past as it jumps there? Max is not celebrating. He's declaring fudge. Kyle Taylor, Cardew, best of the Johnnie Walker tours. Clynelish, by far the worst. Ooh, I think Kyle, it looks like a new name. Welcome in. I think it probably depends on the day. I just had friends of mine coming down from Clynelish declaring it the best whiskey tour they've ever had. So it depends on the day and certainly on the tour guide, I think. Roy O'Meara is in on celebrating a 7 out of 9. The Hogshead Alex is saying 8 out of 9, which means I have to get this wrong to maintain my constant 8 out of 10. Let's do better, Alex. Let's see how you got on. Okay, let's see what the ASHAT is tonight. It's talking about Glenord. Diageo's Glenord Can malt up to 45,000 tonnes of barley per year. That's a lot of barley, isn't it? Which can produce how much litres of pure alcohol? 45,000 tonnes of barley. How much does that make? Now, it's an asshat, so you would like it just to be multiple choice options, but is 45,000 tonnes A enough to cover all of Diageo's malt capacity? Now they have 28 distilleries now, or is it 29 if you count Brora, 29? B, barely enough for just Glenord and Talisker? Or C, enough to keep one of the largest malt distilleries, such as Glenlivet or Glenfiddich, going at full capacity? 45,000 tonnes of malted barley per year, it's an asset question, can produce how much litres of pure alcohol? A, enough to cover all of Diageo's malt whisky requirements. B, barely enough for Glenord and Talisker. Or C, enough to keep one of the largest malt distilleries, either Glenlivet or Glenfiddich, going at full capacity. Too Slow Rob is saying, what? WTF? I get it, Rob. I do get it. Jimmy Legg is suggesting it cannot be A, enough to cover all of Diageo's malt capacity. Why, Jimmy? Because they've got Port Ellen, so Port Ellen is clearly covering some of the capacity. Well, Port Ellen sell to other distilleries too, such as Kilchoman, such as Ardbeg, such as Lechick over in Mull. Aye, there's lots of things. It's an asshat question. Bloody hell, says Dakota Hampton. McAllen Fine and Rare is shouting easy. The confidence of the doc. That is a frickin' guess. That's exactly what it's supposed to be. It's an asshat question, Falsgraf. It's always what it's about. Michael Hesland is complaining that it's an asshat too. But I can tell you that a lot of you have got it absolutely right. 45,000 tonnes of barley malted at Glenord is enough to produce about 20 million litres of pure alcohol, which matches roughly the production of Glenlivet or Glenfiddich, 21 million litres, if they're producing at full capacity. Did anybody manage a 10 out of 10 tonight? Did anybody make it? Come on, somebody's made it. I know it got sticky at the end. I know it's always going to be a bit trickier on the return, but somebody made it over the line. Yes, Ben, Whiskey with Molly is celebrating his 10 out of 10. You might be the only one. He's using the emoji as well, making it very easy for me to say. Thanks, Ben. 9 out of 10 for Peter Box. Terrific, Peter. 8s for Glenn Anderson and MJ Rodden. MJ Rodden, fantastic. Good to see you in, MJ. Andrew Pears on a 7 and Multi-Haggis Muncher Matthew on 8. Cool Running on 6. Nicholas on 8. Whiskey Film Greg is saying 9 out of 10. I'll take it. Terrific, Greg. That's tremendous. Well done. And it's good to see you in. Tom Elmer on 3 out of 6. Okay, you've only a partial, but you're on a pass mark, 50%. Let's see how you got on with the rest. And BMO is celebrating a 7 out of 10. Good to see you, BMO. Raul G is on an 8. Terrific. Tony Nelson, 8. One of my best. Terrific, Tony. Sugar Kitty on 7. That's maybe a wee bit below par for Sugar Kitty tonight, but still a good, strong score. Rick Johnson on a 6. Stewie Baby, 8. Not too pish, he's saying. Good to see you in, Stewie. Keith Sherman gets on a 6. Andrew Butler on 9. Terrific stuff. 7s for Mike Hesland, John Della Cuisine and Molasses, Dakota Hampton on a 6. Andrew Butler would normally, here we've got some spam coming in, hopefully one of the, you don't see that, but I see it. Hopefully one of the admins can tidy all of that nonsense up. Peter is saying, time to hit the sack. Thanks for organising. Sleep well, everyone in Slanchify. Thank you very much. Peter Lee is on a 9 out of 10. Terrific stuff. And Steve Atkis is celebrating an 8. Superb, everyone. Thank you all so much for hanging out with me to talk about what I feel a certain duty to talk about. But what I tried to do tonight was put a positive spin on it and not complain about the prices of whiskey, but focus on prices of whiskey that we can celebrate. And I hope that came across. It's been easy for me. You always make it easy for me. Thank you so much. Thank you also. Make a wee quiet celebration of the fact that I managed to get 400 a couple of people mentioned it in the Recycle Review, and they've mentioned it tonight, but 400 Patreon subscribers. It gives this energy, wind, sales, wind in the sales, everything's achievable because of those patrons that step up. Thank you also to all the barflies that keep the vPub ad-free as well. And I hope you enjoy having access to all those emoji and badges and things. Jimmy Leggs bought me a dram as well, which is another such a generous thing, Jimmy. We should all demand whiskey that stands out. When it all tastes the same, we're in trouble. Give us a taste and smell we'll always remember. You're an elder, Jimmy. You're an elder. It's clear. But you've known that from the beginning, my friend. I know you have. Thank you very much for your slancha, Jimmy Leg. Raleigh is saying, great vPub, good to have you back. Thank you, Real. Thank you so much. Eben is saying, super fun vPub, Roy, thanks and good night. And Too Slow is saying, thanks, Roy and crew. Thanks, Rolfie. Thanks, Rob. Tommy Elmer is saying, had to work at home. Oh my God. So missed the 4 quiz questions. Yeah, that's what the replay's all about, Tom. It's wonderful to have you in. Thanks for skiving with the rest of the barflies and me tonight. Mike Molasses is saying, cheers, Aquavita and all you barflies. Thank you so much, Mike. And Helen is saying, grand vPub, Roy, cheers. It just means a lot that you still enjoy it when it's just me shouting at the camera for a couple of hours. It's terrific. Thank you, Helen. Thanks so much. Graham Fraser, great vPub, Roy. But now worrying how many of tonight's bottles in my stash. Don't worry, your stash is keeping you well padded, my friend. Tom is saying, slancha, good night, barflies. And Whiskey with Molly, celebrating being a member of the barflies for 12 months. Love being back in the vPub with a 10 out of 10 too, Ben. He's saying, thanks, Roy, and the barflies. Ben, it's always amazing to have you in here, my friend. Congratulations to you. Peter Lou, I do enjoy a solo vPub. Peter, I do enjoy you being here. And Erwin is saying, great evening. Thank you, Roy. Rick Johnson, thanks again. It's time well spent, Roy. Thank you very much, Rick. Thank you, my friend. And Dakota Hampson saying, happy to have made it on, Roy. Your vPubs are always the best, Dakota. Please return. Please come back again. And Jimmy Leg, final words to Jimmy. The only thing better than a solo vPub is you and Roddy. We need to, I never even had a chance to hang out with Roddy at the club on Tuesday night. It was so busy. We need to get Roddy back. And Michael Heslin's bought me a wee dram to say, so much fun, glad to be live. Thank you for your dram, Michael. Thanks to everybody for hanging out with me tonight. You're all very dearly loved. And I look forward to hanging out with you next week from a very, very distant location, far away from where we are right now. I'm hoping that the vPub will be coming live to you from the other side of the Atlantic a week from tonight. Please let it happen. And until then, I'll raise this glass and tell you that you're all very dearly loved. Thank you. I look forward to hanging out with you next week. Slajva.